Yes. Chair Balte,
Present.
Vice Chair Thompson,
Present.
Board Member Hirsch,
Present.
Board Member Lee,
Present.
Board Member Liu.
Present.
Okay, we have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. Oral communications. Are there any members of the public who wish to address any item not on this agenda? Do we have any members raising their hand, Vin?
Chair Balte, we currently do not have any members wishing to speak in oral communication.
Thank you very much. Next item is agenda changes, additions, and deletions. Jody Gerhart, do we have anything for that?
No changes.
Okay, I would like to add that I've been spoken with by at least one member of the board who's requested that we have a agenda discussion in the future regarding, I guess you'd say, ex parte communications between board members and the staff and the public. I'd like to ask staff that we agendize something of that nature as an informal discussion at some point this year. Will that be okay, Jody?
Yes, we've had the attorney's office do such a conversation before. Do you feel like you want to bring the attorneys back? Would that be helpful to?
I don't feel the need for that, but I would leave that to staff's discretion. I think I'd like to have the 5 board members have an opportunity to discuss amongst ourselves what we think is an appropriate process for communicating outside of meetings. And I think it's a legitimate thing just to bring up and discuss. So what I'm really after is to allow the board to have a discussion amongst ourselves. If you think the attorneys can be beneficial, that's fine.
Okay, and is this, you're thinking for the next hearing on November 19th?
I would prefer to do it later this calendar year.
Okay,
But,
so.
That's again, whatever you think is best to fit in.
Yeah, so December 3rd would be the next available.
Yeah. So either of those meetings, and maybe it depends also on what other items we have.
Yes.
I would think about half an hour ought to be enough to just go through all of that.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, thank you very much. City official reports. Jody again.
Yes, Jody Gerhart, manager of current planning. And thank you for my screen person. So this just shows our meetings to the end of the year. We do currently have items for each of those hearings. So to the best of my knowledge, all the meetings will happen. We do December 15th would be installation of new or reappointments of existing members. I have heard from the clerk's office that the council will be doing that in a timely fashion. So we will have a full board. The new board would start December 17th. So we will get confirmation from council probably around December 14th or so. And then if we go to the next page, we do have 2 items for our next hearing, November 19th. We did put down here 3585 El Camino. That's actually going to be pushed off to December 3rd, likely. But what's going to go on the November 19th hearing, we will be having finishing up on the objective standards. We had started that conversation, got maybe 3/4 of the way through. And so we'll finish up with the last quarter or so. And as we have time, we can kind of, start a second round if we so choose. And the second item on that hearing is going to be 744 San Antonio Road, which is a master sign program for the 2 Marriott hotels that are going at that location. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. Okay, then we're ready to get started on our action items. Action item number 2, public hearing, quasi-judicial, 1310 Bryan Street, the Castilleja School Project, the 3rd ARB hearing. Recommendation to the City Council regarding architectural review of Castilleja School's phased campus redevelopment proposal. Zone District R1 10,000, environmental review. A final environmental impact report was published July 29th and 30th, 2020. For more information, contact Amy French. Okay, before we get started, do we have any disclosures to make? Alex, disclosures?
Yes, I have a couple. I visited the site on Tuesday. I also exchanged an email with Tony Carrasco, who wanted to discuss the sustainability provisions in the Castellea plans, but I declined to meet since we are between hearings. I did look at there's a product that the applicant is using, the Oka wood, and I did do additional research about that on the website. And then I also did look at the Packard Foundation in downtown Los Altos, which is like a similarly designed project as the proposed project. And I was looking at facade length.
Thank you, Alex.
And that's it.
David, any disclosures?
No, no disclosures.
No disclosures. Grace, any disclosures, please?
Just simply that I visited the site a couple of, in addition, a couple of times, and also went and saw the materials board.
Thank you. Ozma, disclosures, please.
Yeah, I saw the materials board.
Wonderful. And then I'd like to disclose that I also visited the site, and possibly of interest to my colleagues is that oak tree number 88 is an existing tree to the north left of the swimming pool, proposed swimming pool location. And I found that the drip line of the tree was approximately 8 to 10 feet larger than what's shown on the plans. So just for your reference on that. I spent some time visiting the site earlier this week. Okay, with that, we're ready to get started with the staff presentation. Jody, does or Amy French. Amy, would you like to get started, please?
Yes. I need to make sure that I'm sharing this appropriately. Okay, well, get this done. Does everyone see this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and you can hear me. Good morning, Amy French, Chief Planning Official, and we are here with the ARB this morning to discuss the Castellea School. Your staff report covered the submittal that the applicant provided several weeks ago now to the Architecture Review Board and on the webpage for the project. The staff report included the draft findings again, as we did on October 1st. At October 1st meeting, we did have speakers, 13 speakers, and this is a continued hearing to a date uncertain with direction to modify and bring in conformed sets, which the applicant did. Last night and on October 28th, the Planning and Transportation Commission heard from the public and had some discussion late last night and continued the hearing again to November 18th to continue discussion of the CUP conditions. So today's hearing, we're here to review the applicant's responses. The applicant is here to give a presentation. I can summarize the PTC hearings. I kind of just did. There was some consensus building last night regarding number of events that are subject to the CUP, as well as trips, limitation on vehicle trips, both average daily trips and peak hour trips. There's some other stuff that happened, but again, it was continued. So those are not, there's more to come. So today we'll have a public testimony, and then the ARB may resume discussion and provide a recommendation if it so chooses. I'm going to go through the applicant's responses. The applicant, of course, will go into greater detail in their presentation. The building changes, an overview is there was a second break provided as requested by the Architecture Review to continue breaking up the mass on Kellogg Street. Kellogg Avenue, excuse me. As well, additional green tile placements on that elevation, and some other responses that I'll briefly touch upon. We also had the opportunity to discover that there was a stair that needed to be relocated from the Lockey House parcel over to a different area, which the applicant did with adjusted plans for that. That move realized the retention of the oak tree 102 and a couple more trees as well. We'll cover just briefly again the noise. There was a acoustician report that was provided with this packet. And then landscaping, of course. There's a lot of discussion about landscaping requested by the ARB. So I'll just quickly go through the slides for those that might be tuning in for the first time. Castle's request is to replace the existing building, and you'll see these images from Kellogg Avenue. This was a lot of discussion at the last ARB meeting. And then the other views at the corner here of Bryant and Emerson, and then along Emerson. So these are superimposed images of the proposed building. The request that the ARB made was to show elevations with trees off and trees on, and so they have done that. This one shows this second break, and the green tile again. Last time it was only here, this time it's marching down here and again on the other side. There's been changes here at the fascia, and views of the entrances and balconies will come shortly. Again, trees on and off on Bryant Street. This shows that lobby as last time the ARB saw. Emerson, trees on, trees off. These are the two entrances of the two drop-off driveways. Bryant, you saw last time. This has an enlarged elevation showing this second break in the massing. This again is the second break views. A little fuzzy, these diagrams. This one shows the green tile use, the third location for that green tile. The applicant provided a number of sections and enlarged elevations. I'm sure they'll go through those in detail. This is kind of a summary of that. The applicant provided balcony images as requested. The photovoltaics, there's an example of installed, the system they're looking to install. This is a school in the vicinity. The building revisions, this image indicates where the second floor area was removed to add up to a total reduction of gross floor area from the last meeting. There are images of stairs around the property. This one is the stairs that come from the parking, below grade parking, and there's two stairs. Stair one is the stair that is uncovered, that is going to be moving as shown in the images. And the second stair is the one that has the roof over it, and this is next to the elevator near the gym. All of this is metal stairs, metal railing, metal roof. This just shows the image of where the stair is going to. Again, from this parcel, this is tree 102. And so that's the latest to address some of the concerns. This is again the site view showing that. Then just a quick set of fences. There's the pool fence here. This is an image I showed earlier. And this is what the rendering of that pool fence as it faces the neighborhood. Here's the photovoltaics with trees on. This is a view of the landscaping, the mitigation trees that are proposed. The green trees are the ones that are proposed. The relocated trees are the ones shown in this tan color. This is a key to the frontage enhancement close-up drawings that enlarged drawings of the landscaping around the entire site, well, on 3 sides of the site. So I'm going to just quickly go through those. I've put them together to see. Here it is from Bryant, from the corner of Embarcadero all the way to Kellogg. This is the corner of Bryant and Kellogg. There are bioswales in these planting areas, and the set shows the images of the plants to be used with a key to make it understandable. We go down Kellogg. Here's the Kellogg frontage. Again, some bioswale area. And then the corner of Emerson and Kellogg, leading over to the Emerson Street homes, where there's the garage exit and the emergency vehicle access drive. Fences, I've done a keyed diagram showing where these fences are. There's 4 types of fences on this diagram. The other fence was the pool sound wall. But here's where these come are shown. If you want me to come back to this diagram later, that's happy to do that to fully understand where those fences go. Same with the gates. Gates are indicated here. There's 5 types of gates: vehicle, pedestrian, etc. This had been an earlier request and was earlier provided, but I thought it would be worth showing again. These are the daylight luminance patterns for the campus, as well as the sun patterns. Hopefully these were available for the last hearing. And then because it came up at the Planning Commission last night, a member of the public didn't understand or hadn't seen what the distribution percentages would be. So I thought it would be worth showing today. The transportation impact analysis of the alternative 4 recommendation, which is included in our recommendation, is to distribute the drop-off trips to 27% of the vehicles coming through the garage, 43% going through this Bryant drop-off drive, again, coming only one direction down Bryant, and then 30% on this Kellogg driveway. I believe that concludes my presentation. And I know the applicant is here to present as well.
Thank you very much, Amy French. Do we have any questions from the board for staff? No questions?
I do have one, just maybe about that last comment you made about the.
Please speak closer to your microphone, David. It's hard to hear you.
Okay. Hold on a second. I see that's the problem because see if can you hear me enough, Amy, to hear this question now?
A little bit better.
All right, I'll move my mic a little later. The question is, of the 27 and what 43%, whichever, on Bryant, do they all come from that same direction? Are they all coming off of Embarcadero? Move my while you answer.
Amy, are you able to understand his question?
Yes, in order for vehicles, I think I do, in order for vehicles to enter the campus on the Bryant side, they have to be driving southward, if that's the compass direction. I don't know exactly, but it's we call that south, Project South, I guess. They're driving down Bryant and turning right into the Bryant driveway. There's no turning left currently, nor proposed from northbound Bryant left into the campus.
Okay, so all of that traffic that's been a part of the environmental report as well, the traffic in that direction?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, with that, then we're ready to have our applicant make a presentation. Do we have someone from the applicant team with us? Vin, is there somebody here?
This is Adam Waltag from WRNS Studio. I can dive right in, Vin, if that's all right.
You'll have 10 minutes, Adam, so you can start whenever you're ready.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for your time and consideration. I'm looking forward to your comments and suggestions here. We have a lot to go through here today, but we wanted to focus on these 4 key elements around building modification, some of the material clarifications, landscaping and fencing, and some of the daylight strategies on the project. This slide illustrates our proposed site plan that incorporates the changes we've heard from you from the last time. Many of those changes were really focused along the Kellogg Street elevation. And those changes were really centered on massing, material, color, and texture. So this slide shows our original proposed elevation way back when we first met with you folks. And this slide shows the first round of comments with the initial break you see here, just to the left of the science portion of the project. And this is the new revised elevation with an added second break that Amy was referring to. And now with trees. So here's a view along Kellogg, and note the 2 different breaks in the massing. The initial one that goes all the way through the building, and the new proposed one towards Emerson that's set back not all the way through, but does break the massing in that location. And this slide illustrates the plan of the first and second floor, as well as the Kellogg elevation, highlighting the variety of kind of ins and outs or setbacks from the street. Note again that second break in the elevation just above the Kellogg Street entry. And this is a view looking towards Emerson from that first break you see above the ceramic tile on the right. And this is a view of the new proposed break in the massing above the Kellogg Street entry. So focusing a bit at that Kellogg entry, we've tried to keep it small and residential in scale and screened from the street, just beneath that new porch created by that break. We've also added more green ceramic tile marking that entry. And on the left, another view of that entry as you're kind of walking into that space. And above it, you can see the new massing break. And then on the right, continuing this approach along the south and turning the corner along Emerson at that recessed second floor terrace with the proposed green tile. So focusing on some of the material changes. And along the Kellogg elevation, we're going to cut a section here through this portion of the project. And here's a detailed cutaway 3D section that illustrates those changes to the facade. So we've taken our cues from the gun building you see on those little snapshots on the right, where the gun has a very strong datum between the first and second floor. So that's what we've tried to do and really amplify in our approach. So we've increased the number of vertical wood battens on the second floor above that horizontal belt line, which really breaks that 2-story facade into 2 distinct elements. And then we've also brought the language of the batten to that metal fascia that runs continuously all around the building now. And we think that's going to be a wonderful addition, adding texture and shadow to that fascia. We've also changed the color of all the metal windows and the fascia from a clear anodized to a warmer champagne anodized color. We think that's going to make the building feel much warmer. I'm really, really pleased with how this is starting to kind of come together. And then here's going to be another section closer to the Bryant Street intersection. And here you can see, again, that first floor facade clad in wood shingles, the second floor set back behind the planted terrace, and the clear story windows at grade that bring daylight into the lower garden level. And then a shot of the updated material palette with the champagne anodized aluminum sample. And now let's take a look at some of the modifications to the Bryant Street elevations. So again, this was our original proposed design, and you can see with the full break between the 2 building volumes and the exposed cast in place concrete wall on that Bryant Street elevation. And then what we're proposing now, which is covering that and letting that wood facade wrap around that concrete wall, and then with the new proposed lobby. with trees. Moving along to Emerson Street. Here again was the proposed elevation, and you can see where that belt line is broken by that concrete wall that goes 2 stories. And then what we're proposing now, which is letting that wood facade wrap around the whole building, not being broken up by those concrete shear walls. And then with trees. So a little bit more on some of the building clarifications that kind of came up in our last meeting. There was a question about Oka wood, and we just wanted to show here, diagrammed in yellow, the specific locations where we're proposing the Oka wood window system. These are areas that we felt that the program behind those windows would benefit from a little more screening from the street and a little more privacy. And so we have them in the library. We have them in, which you see here on the Bryant Street elevation. We have them along Kellogg, where we have the science and maker spaces, and then along Emerson on the 2nd floor near a conference and dining space. Now looking at a section of the building and looking at our approach to our photovoltaic strategy, where PV panels are set low on stanchions and are laid almost flat. And as Amy mentioned, we've done this a couple times before. These are project examples from a campus very nearby. That very low profile is something that really has very little impact on the facade. Now looking at perimeter edges and landscape and fences, this is the proposed landscape plan that illustrates our internal and perimeter landscape design. It is really focused on amplifying and sustaining the existing landscape character of the area. It's also designed to work passively and slow the flow of stormwater on site and ensure the health of existing and proposed trees. And as Amy mentioned earlier, here is kind of a detailed plan of our fence strategy. This slide illustrates 2 of the 5 campus fence conditions, each of those conditions responding directly to their specific content. And this slide shows a range of a more traditional brick and metal fencing along the Embarcadero and public gateways. We also transition to wood fences that feel a little bit more residential in scale and face a neighborhood along Emerson. And this is a specific type 5, that is along the depressed pool seen here. And this fence is doing a couple different things. It's actually supporting a PV canopy that is trying to get our overall project net zero target in line, and is also detailed to help increase acoustic performance of that wall. That is set behind a landscape planted buffer zone. This is kind of a detailed vision of that here. This illustrates kind of the richness and the variety of those native plant species and drought tolerant strategy here. A comment was brought up about public art. And in response to that, we've looked at a couple opportunities to think about where we might want to incorporate that. And one location was along the existing drop-off along Kellogg. And you see here on the left, that's a plan that shows some possible locations and some ideas on where we might want to bring some of these elements in. The intent would be that these elements might be, specifically designed to be integrated into the landscape along the street. We wanted to show this to you as some initial concept thoughts about how we might integrate public art along that street. Now moving to daylighting and planning. There was a comment at our last meeting about what programs are in that garden level, the below grade level. We wanted to bring this to light. So going left to right, you can see we have performing arts and digital recording. We have world languages. There's a faculty hub. There's a continuation of the library that actually does spill down to this level. There's science and maker spaces. And in the upper school, the students' hub space begins at that grade and spills down to that lower level, as well as building services and trash and access. That's all at that lower level. So the yellow indicates where we have, through the use of skylights, clear story windows, light wells, and open double height spaces, brought daylight into this garden level. And that kind of goes and begins really at the roof, but feathers all the way through the building. And you can see here on the first floor how these are these elements that we're using to bring daylight into those spaces. Up on that second floor, and how the roof also plays a part in how our daylight strategies is coming together. This is a 3D section that illustrates how the middle school entry and hub spaces work. So students walk past a sunken garden that brings daylight into that garden level through large storefront doors into a double height space that reaches up to the second floor. And again, through the use of skylights, interior clear story windows, daylight really will be evident. We really are trying to get daylight evident in all aspects of the middle school spaces.
A time check, 10 minutes is up.
Just 2 slides left. And then this is a section diagram that shows the high school hub. And here this space starts at grade and drops to the garden level. And again, through the use of skylights, full height south facing clear story windows, and interior clear story windows, we really feel and have tested how daylight is going to move through this project. And we feel very, very confident that the spaces will feel very inviting and very easy to kind of flow between. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adam, for your presentation. Do we have any questions of the applicant from the board members? Anyone?
Yeah, I do.
Ozma, go ahead, please.
Adam, would you be able to go over again the shear wall locations? I'm looking at our printed plans and I do see concrete shear walls on Bryant Street and on Emerson Street. So I would like some clarification on those elevations.
Which drawings are you looking at, Ozma, please?
So AB 305 and AB 306 both show a texture concrete shear wall, which I was going to ask about what that texture is. But then as Mr. Woltag was going through his presentation, I noticed that those elevations look a little different. So just like some clarification on what those elevations look like and where the shear walls are.
Absolutely. I'm going to point to the plan here. It's a little hard to see, but I'm going to show on Bryant Street, there's a shear wall located here. Along Kellogg, there's another shear wall that was located over here and over here. So 2, and then 1 more here along Emerson. And what we're proposing to do is actually clad those in wood. So before we put a break here, there was a shear wall right here. Our structural engineer's really not happy about this, but we're going to get it to work. So there was an exposed concrete shear wall here, and there was actually another one located here along Kellogg. Now you won't see those concrete shear walls anymore. We're going to clad them with wood. So a little bit more detailed view here. There was a wall located here and here. Those are now covered. Along Bryant Street, let's get to that one here. Here we go. Along Bryant Street, there is the location of that concrete shear wall, right? And we had a break. You can see where our waistband kind of stopped, and we allowed that shear wall to make its way to the facade. We all felt it was better actually to go in this direction, which would be to clad that shear wall, kind of let the finish, that wood finish and that belt line continue and not break the facade. So we prefer this approach to our initial suggestion, which was this one.
Okay, yeah, I think that this image that we're looking at is the one that's in our set. So in this new one, are the wood panels a certain size, or are they the wood slats? I can sort of see some seams there.
Yes, right here, you're starting to see those. Yes. So what we have is, I'm going to go to a little detailed view of that here that might help explain it. So this is a pretty good view that shows our strategy throughout the whole project, where we have vertical wood siding. So where you see these kind of smoother looking panels that are separated by these battens, these are on about a 4 foot, between a 4 and a 5 foot module. It's very regular. And those help gather, these battens help kind of establish where we have, solid wood, vertical wood panels, and then the openings for fenestration. Pretty regular pattern. We have our belt line, right, which we really like, kind of, accentuating from the gun building. And then on the second floor, we have the same wood siding, but we're going to increase the amount of battens on that second floor. So it's the same material, but a much more intense, I'm going to say, density of wood battens. So you're starting to get a break now, very similar in a way interpretation of the gun building, where you have a much a different cadence of the wood battens on the first floor to the second floor. There'll be more shade and shadow. There'll be more density. We really like that difference between, as opposed to a continuous facade, of the same elements above that belt line, we're going to start to establish a different density of battens on either side of that belt line.
Okay, thank you. And can you go over the Emerson facade? I
Yep.
think I cut you off before you went there.
Oh, no, it's right here. Let's see. So the Emerson, here you can start to see where that concrete shear wall used to be, and it broke our belt line and it really broke the facade into two elements. And here it is now with a continuation of that belt line. The wood skin just rolls over it. And we like that continuation of the facade. We feel it's much better, much more contiguous.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I do have one more question, and it's about lighting. I wanted a confirmation. Maybe this is something you might need to go and get it. The confirmation on the ZY1 pole light. The image that we have in our packet is really tiny, and it's a little hard to tell what that light is.
Oh boy, I'm sorry. I don't have that packet in front of me at the moment, but can we get that to you and get a better
Yeah,
get more information on that? That was
Yeah.
Z. Which one again was that? That
the
was Z.
ZY1.
Okay.
And then on the plans, it says ZY1C, and I just also wanted to confirm that is the same light.
Okay. We can go ahead and get that to you.
Okay, those are my questions.
Before any other questions, Adam, could you clarify then that the packet elevations and perspectives do not or show that concrete shear wall, and you're saying that that's not going to be there any longer?
That's correct.
What's going on? Why are the drawings out of sync then?
You know, this approach here, with the facade treatment is a late addition. You know, we felt it was in concert with our approach to our elevations and trying to relate this to the gun building.
Amy French, excuse me, Adam, Amy, are you aware of this change?
I'm seeing it as you are.
Okay, Adam, it's important to have a complete set of plans for us, and it seems like the elevations and perspectives in our packet do not show this. I'm not sure how we're going to react to that, but I just want to clarify with you that really is the case, that what you're proposing is not the same as the drawings you've submitted. That's a question.
Yeah, the
Okay.
only changes there would just be on the shear wall, covering the concrete shear wall with the wood siding.
Okay, thank
Those
you.
should be the only changes that may not have been.
Any other questions for the applicant from members of the board? Alex, Grace, David? Then I have a question for you, Adam, regarding, if you could go back to, you had a very nice sectional perspective titled batten, something like, yeah, that one is good. This is a technical type of thing, but when I look at your drawings, you seem to indicate a series of steel I-beams just inside the glazed curtain wall supporting the timber slab roof. You also seem to indicate a series of drain pipes. You're showing a notch on the roof section here where the gutter would be for drainage. But my understanding is that you can't run pipes laterally through a timber slab. Are those then going to be visible underneath? Will that change the way this looks?
Are you speaking about this detail here with the concealed?
Exactly. On that detail, the drain pipe goes through the timber slab, right?
That's true. It goes through the CLT.
And then where does it go from there?
You know, it depends on where in the project you're going, where this condition takes place.
So take
typically
the section in your perspective there. Where does it go in that section? How is it going to get routed out?
Sure. Typically, it's in the body of the wall. So it could be concealed within that wall, and then it goes into our stormwater management area. There could be areas where it might daylight. We haven't run that all the way through, but typically what we do is we conceal that within the wall where we can. There will be areas where you might see a downspout, right, that would chase all the way down towards our stormwater management approach. So
it's possible we'll have exposed drainage pipes on the underside of that roof slab.
You might start to see in a few locations where it makes sense to daylight, correct. You would see a downspout.
And then on the inside, the structural beam, your drawing shows that as an exposed steel I-beam. Wouldn't you need some kind of fire protection? How's that going to work and look? Have you thought that through?
Are you speaking about this detail here?
No, on the inside of, looking at your perspective where the person is standing up above
Right here, correct.
on the second floor. I'm talking about the roof.
Here,
Up
yes.
there, I noticed in a number of your drawings, a series of steel sections indicated, which would be necessary to support the slab over the glazed openings. And I was just wondering if how much you've thought you've given to that, because I think that would change dramatically how it affects how it looks.
I don't see what you're seeing right here, unfortunately, Peter. I think what we've done here in cases like this, where we have a CLT slab above our steel beam, is that
Right.
all of that would be fire protected. And so we could definitely get you more information on that when we get to that level of detail. Absolutely. But we wouldn't propose anything that wasn't.
I'm looking at your detail number 4 on sheet AB 802, which is indicating a pretty clear steel section running right underneath that small parapet wall up above.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't have that same drawing in front of me at the
Okay, well,
moment.
to my colleagues then, there's a steel beam that seems to be indicated there, which I believe would be necessary. And I'm not sure you could just leave it exposed at that. And I think it'd be nice to know how that looks. That'll be seen through the window from the exterior. So that's a question to you, but okay, if there's no resolution to that, then that's the end of that question.
The type 4 construction? Is it heavy
Oh.
timber?
I can't hear you, Ozma.
Oh, just confirming. Is this a type 4 building? That's a question for Mr. Voltag.
Oh, you mean the fire rating of the building?
Actually, sorry, I see it's type 2B. Okay.
Yeah, it's 2B. It's 2B.
Would it help,
Oh,
this
no,
is
the-
Amy, would it help if I show I have that page number you referenced, Chair Balte?
I don't think so, because this is a question to the applicant. I don't really hear
Okay.
anything else about it. I don't want to drag it beyond that. Are there any other questions for the applicant?
I'll retract my question on the ZY1 pole. I did some further Googling of it, and it's a timber pole, it seems, for the lighting fixtures. That was my question about the material.
Yeah, they do provide the specs on it, Ozma, in the packet, but it does require some legwork to figure it out.
Yeah.
I wanted to pick up on your comment, Peter, about the beam.
But David, this is a question period right now. Is this a question or a comment?
The question
Okay, go ahead.
regarding whether you're going to have a drop ceiling or exposed lighting. How do you intend to treat the clear story aspect of those rooms that have beams below the line of the window from the support of the slab above?
Adam, did you understand his question?
Yes, I did. Typically what we do, that beam is set back away from that clear story window, a certain distance, could be 18 inches, 24 inches. It's not exactly entirely set. So you do get glass line coming from the bottom of the CLT slab, right, all the way down to the floor slab. It's a full height window cut. We used to call it a shadow pocket in the days of a lot of high-rise construction, where you have it set back. I think you remember that, but that beam is set back. And what that does is sometimes it can be softened in. And so we soffit that where we have an acoustic ceiling coming in at a lower elevation. And that provides a very clean and tidy way to encase the beam, fireproof it, as well as provide acoustic performance to those interior spaces, right?
Okay. And so far, your section doesn't really show those aspects of the interior relative to that outside wall, the pocket idea. That's yet to come, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So Adam, do I understand that the interior may have a dropped ceiling on these classrooms?
In certain classrooms, yes, where the acoustic performance is needed. Correct. Yes, there'll be suspended lights, ceiling fans. There's a whole interior reflected ceiling plan that we could get to you, right amount of time that would show all those things. But yes, there'll be suspended lighting. There'll be acoustic ceilings in these spaces.
And how deep do you think, how far down would that be dropping from the structural slab, do you think?
It would probably be about 24 to 30 inches. So I think what we're trying to achieve in there, Peter, is a 10-foot clear space.
I see.
So that is our goal, is to try to get that. That has the best acoustic properties and the best daylighting properties. And where we've done that in classrooms before, it's worked very, very well with lighting and acoustics.
And you're saying then that the shadow pocket, the space between the drop ceiling and the glazing perimeter might be about 24 inches wide?
Approximately, yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you for the clarification there.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Thank you then. Vin, do we have any members of the public who wish to address us? I'd like to open the meeting to comments from the members of the public now.
Yes, we do have some raised hands, and I see the number of raised hands is going up as we speak.
Okay, that's good.
So, Veronica, can we get the speaker timer, please?
So to the members of the public, we'll be asking you to say your piece each in turn, and you'll have 3 minutes to address us. Vin, do we have a list of names, or how do we do this?
Yeah, we'll put the list of names on the screen.
That'd be great. Thank you. Okay.
I do apologize. Looks like Veronica's no longer in this meeting. Maybe she had like a internet disconnection or something. Let me see if I can maybe just put that up myself. One moment, please.
Yeah, take your time, Vin. We're going to do this next. Let's get it right. It's like vote counting. You have to just do this the right way.
I see that Veronica's on the call again now.
Okay, great. And she did just message me that she has returned. I guess she must have had a disconnection of some sort. All right, thank you so much, Veronica. Okay, so while she fills in the list, let me just read out the first 5 names so that way they can prepare. The first 5 speakers will be Mary Sylvester, followed by Kath Garber, followed by Vania Fang, followed by Trisha Suvari, and then followed by Jim Poppy.
Do you know how many speakers we have in total, Vin?
Currently, we have 11 raised hands.
Okay, that'll be fine.
Okay, so the first speaker will be Mary.
Welcome, Mary.
Thank you, Commissioner or Board Chair Balte, as well as your fellow and female board members. And thank you to all of you for your countless hours of time, along with city staff in working on this project so diligently. I'd also like to acknowledge Mr. Nguyen for his competent and very professional performance with all of us. I would like to acknowledge Chair Balte, you for paying attention to the vulnerability of tree 89. It is at risk, and we appreciate you acknowledging its state. Secondly, I would like to ask the board, where is the garage architects? It's been great to have Adam Waltig and his team available to present to the community and the chair commissions and boards, but we need further information about this very significant amendment to our zoning code and the implications for the neighborhood. We need to meet with the architects for the underground garage. Thank you. Now, the substance of my comments. Castellea operates on a conditional use permit, and therefore its operation in a single family neighborhood is a privilege, not a right, as supporters of the school are trying to convince city officials. Consequently, it may not do anything that's harmful or injurious to the public welfare, as well as adjacent property owners. The project represents a substantial intensification of use of the Castellea site to the detriment of the neighborhood, community at large, and sensitive biological resources, such as the mature and protected trees it plans to remove. This is ultimately a loss to the community and this natural heritage we have. The sustainability plan is being undermined with the underground garage. 64,000 square feet over allowable use is being reviewed and a variance is requested. The school and city are trying to explain away the intensification and inconsistencies of this project. All we ask for is a code compliant project that pays attention to public safety, neighborhood quality of life, and the well-being of the community at large. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary. Our next speaker, please, Vin.
Yes, our next speaker is Kath. Hi, Kath, if you're there, can you please unmute yourself?
Yes, hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you, sorry. My name's Catherine Garber. I often present projects to the city as an architect representing clients in Palo Alto. Today, I'm speaking as a Palo Alto resident who also cares deeply about how our city continues to evolve architecturally to become stronger as a community. With that perspective in mind, I want to voice my support for Castellea's designs and modifications. I'm pleased to see the refinements that have been made along the Kellogg side of campus. The new breaks in the Kellogg facade parallel the look and scale of the new porches on Bryant. These changes address the goal to reduce the massing and to break up the eave. I feel it does so in a way that creates coherence along the different street views. The sections of the building along Kellogg feel more distinct from one another and also connect visually with the facades on Bryant in new ways. The last time I reviewed these plans, I was pleased to see the porch that had been added on Bryant integrated elements from the historic gun building. Specifically, it was nice to see the option to bring in the green carved doors on the current entry over the new porch. And now for this presentation, the green tiles have been added to the outside of the building of the Kellogg breaks. I think this is a lovely new addition to the project, as are the touches of having the belly band to break the 2 floors and the added vertical battens on the 2nd floor. With input from your commission, I feel Castellea team has brought an attention to detail that serves to tie together the historic structures to the new, handsome, sustainable spaces. This has been a long process for the city and the school, but I truly believe we've arrived at the end of this productive road. The evolution of this project has brought important changes. It's now time to approve these plans. Modernization is desperately needed for Castellea. The current structures are aging and do not enhance the neighborhood in the least. These new buildings and the thoughtful landscaping around them will settle in gently and create a beautiful backdrop for the residential life in this corner of Palo Alto. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kathy Garber. Next speaker, please, Vin.
Yes, our next speaker will be Vania.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I am joining the hearing again today because I live directly across from Castellea School on Kellogg, and therefore I'm very vested in this
I'm really
process.
sorry, Vania, for interrupting you. Veronica, can you reset the timer? Go ahead, sorry.
Can I go now?
Yes.
Okay. So I just want to reiterate that I'm joining the hearing again today because I live directly across from Castellea School in Kellogg, and therefore I'm very invested in this process. The last time I spoke, I shared my gratitude to Castellea for the thoughtful design plans for the new campus. I look forward to the new building, and as I mentioned before, I especially appreciate the gentle entry on Kellogg because it is subtle and beautifully landscaped. The current drop-off patterns do not negatively impact us as direct neighbors, and I want to reiterate that I'm happy those will be the same on the new campus. Castellea has been a good neighbor to us in so many ways, with excellent traffic monitoring, no school parking outside my home, and quiet students who we are happy to see again now that campus has reopened to small groups. During the past ARB and PTC meetings I attended, traffic and noise were often raised as concerns about Castellia's modernization project. As a direct neighbor, I honestly have never experienced any traffic or noise issues from Castellia. We used to live near a neighborhood school prior to relocating to our current house. Every morning going to work, we would be stuck behind a long queue of cars doing drop-offs, as well as yielding to heavy pedestrian traffic. None of that happened at Castellia. Traffic was always well managed and never overflowed onto the neighborhood streets. In fact, we experienced much more traffic problems as we approached the nearby Palo Alto High School. But we accept that fact because we bought our home knowing it is close to schools. While I understand that public schools go through a different traffic regulation process, to me as a neighbor, Palo Alto High and Castellia are both schools. Castellia is not the source of traffic issues in this neighborhood now, and I believe this fact will remain unchanged with the new campus. Regarding noise, we rarely hear any sound from Castellia, and remember, we're almost directly across from Castellia's pool. On the rare occasion that we do hear something, it hardly qualifies as noise. It is a school after all, and schools should not be silenced. I know at the last hearing, as a board, you had suggested further adjustment to reduce the massing on Kellogg. And now that I see the changes the architects have made, I understand why that was important. I appreciate the new setbacks along the second-story roof line, and I think these incremental changes from the past two hearings now add up to a very different and much improved result. I think this modernized building will be a new way that Castellia will improve as a neighbor to me, creating a space that is beautiful and warm and scaled to match the textures and variety of our neighborhood. I'm excited for this project to move forward, and I thank you for your guidance and expertise in this process. I urge you to support this with a final vote today because I want to see this process start, and I also want our neighborhood to be able to move forward. Thank you for your time and attention to this important project for the city of Palo Alto.
Thank you, Vania. Next speaker, please, Vin.
Yes, our next speaker is Trisha.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I attended your hearing for Castellia's project in August and in October, and I'm here again today. As an observer, I appreciate the quality of the deliberation that you all have fostered in this process. As a board, you've made thoughtful observations and asked excellent questions, and your guidance has helped to improve the project. Today, we're reviewing the culmination of years of work from the school, taking in feedback from neighbors, consultants, and other city leaders. This process has continued with input from all of you. I'm impressed with how specific and reflective all of you have been in these recent hearings. As a result, I'm also impressed with how responsive Castellia has been, making small and large adjustments to create an updated campus that will make the neighborhood more beautiful. The changes in feedback I've noted include clarity around the smaller circle to increase setbacks, which offers up more space along the surrounding streets. 2 rounds of changes to the Kellogg facade to break up the massing, vary the roof lines, and modify the external materials. Adjustments to the Bryant entry to include historical elements. Thoughtful assessment of sustainability elements such as solar panels. And review of the best ways to enter campus and allow the school to relate to and interact with the surrounding streets. This has been a fruitful process, and I sincerely hope that you will vote to approve these plans as they are today. I remember that at a recent hearing as a board, you discussed the fact that you wanted to do more than just improve upon the current buildings, which I think we can all agree are dated and need to be replaced. But you talked about wanting to do the best you can to reach beyond that low-hanging fruit to a bigger goal of creating a new campus that is beautiful on its own merits. I think you've done that here. The work that you have put into the process has made a difference. Now I hope that we can shift into concrete steps the school can take to begin to make these plans a reality. I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Trisha Suvari. Next speaker, please.
Yes, our next speaker is Rob.
Hello, this is Rob Levitsky. Aren't those wonderful scripted speeches? Let's reach out for that low-hanging fruit. Well, guess where that low-hanging fruit hangs? It hangs on trees. And without the trees, Palo Alto is nothing but a barren landscape. Initially, Castellea came in 4 years ago and said, oh, well, there's 168 trees here and most of them will be impacted. A lot of them will cut down. As arborist for the city for 20 years, Dave Doctor had a motto, which was you design around nature. And he had a tree ordinance that supported him that oaks and redwoods of a certain size in Palo Alto are protected. Well, Castellea came in and said, we'll cut down any tree we really feel like it. And we pushed back, and because of our pushback, trees start reappearing on the map. But it's really not enough. And what's happened lately is in the EIR, they've taken the position that any tree can be cut down, even protected trees, so long as you mitigate them. So they play the game and saying, well, these oaks are nice, but we are going to plant so many of these little box oaks that we have twice as many trees, or maybe 3 times as many trees, though they might only be 10 feet tall, and I'll be long dead and gone before they're even hardly over my head. Oaks and redwoods are important to Palo Altans, and we shouldn't basically throw away the tree ordinance like planning has done in justifying that in a reading of the ordinance saying that if there's a tree, a protected tree in a place where you want to put a building, then the building always wins. And by supporting this project, you guys on the Architectural Review Board, you would be supporting a precedent that said any oak or any redwood that's protected can be cut down if we want to put a building there. And that's what you've done here. And it's shocking. Not just buildings and not just repaired or upgraded school buildings, but parking garages. The trees have to die. Oaks and redwoods have to die so you can have an underground parking garage excavating 35,000 or more cubic yards of dirt with 3,000 to 5,000 dump load trucks, pouring thousands and thousands of tons of concrete, where each ton of concrete emits 900 kilograms of CO2, which is killing the earth, so that a couple more juniors and seniors can drive to school. Well, we neighbors object. So much for promoting harmonious and orderly development and enhancing the desirability of the neighborhood. I stand opposed, we neighbors stand opposed. Upgrade your school, follow the rules, don't build your underground parking garage, which you can't build anyway because you don't have the square footage. And because you're looking for a variance on square footage and you pretend this game.
Excuse me, Rob, we're over the time limit. Can you wrap it up, please?
That's enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob Levitsky. Next speaker, please, Vin.
Yes, next speaker is Jim.
Yeah, hi, thank you. And thank you very much, Board Chair Balte, for doing some due diligence on this project and going out and looking at the trees. Tree 89 is a magnificent oak tree, which you see visible all the way down Melville Avenue as you approach the school. By threatening its existence with the pool and the garage, it's clear that that tree is in danger, and it is a very important piece to softening the view of the school. As you just seen in the plans, there are a number of fences that are going to be built right around the pool and at all angles. And this tree the removal of that tree, the killing of that tree would be a tragedy. Also, it's been mentioned earlier, why aren't you looking at the garage? This is a huge oversight, and the plans make it look like cars will just magically pop out of the garage as they exit onto Emerson, and there's no detailed view of the entrance on Bryant. And if you look at the garage closer, they have plans for an underground tunnel that would have students walking underneath the sewer easement, probably through the water table, and back up into campus. I mean, this is, it's just stunning to me that the garage has just been overlooked, like it's not any impact to the above ground view. It's clearly a huge piece of this plan and is disruptive to the trees, and it's a huge CO2 burn. It's just so environmentally unfriendly. This really needs to be looked at. And I hope that you can continue this hearing to address these very important and real concerns that neighbors have. As Rob said, we're not being provided scripts by the school to tell you. This is all from neighbors who are impacted, not from parents of students. Thank you very much for your continued diligence.
Thank you, Jim Poppy. Next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Andy.
Hi, thank you very much. My name is Andy Reed, and I live near the school. We look forward to seeing the school's spruced up new campus. The natural woods and colors and terraces and the diversity in vertical elements the architects have added makes it more interesting every time we see the drawings. As a close neighbor, however, it still feels bulky and stark. This building is based upon an enrollment increase of 30% more students, an enormous jump in attendees to the same small space that has served very well as a girls' school for 100 years. The school has not made a case for needing to rebuild at such great extravagance. Of course, if the school wants to change its operational model and teach many more girls, they have resources plenty to provide an array of options without increasing density and traffic in this small site and causing such enmity with the neighbors. Which brings me to finding number 1. I'm glad you are all architects because this is something you are familiar with. The school is asking for a variance, an exception to Palo Alto Muni Code. In order to tear down 5 smaller buildings and build 1 large building, Muni Code says that the school needs to comply with current code. School bases their request for variance upon the size of the lot, which they claim harms them. However, they made it larger by land purchases and merging of lots over the years and getting the city to abandon the 200 block of Melville in 1992. This excludes it from consideration for an exception as the changes in size and shape were made by the owner. The variance the school is asking for is a 40% increase in GFA. Please see my written comments that I sent yesterday. If the underground garage is an accessory facility, which we all agree it is, and is not a basement, which we do not think it is, then this number doubles. This matters because traffic and congestion in the neighborhood is already detrimental to the public health, safety, general welfare, or convenience. This project adds more traffic from 1198 car trips to 1477 car trips. An underground garage and large modern building are incompatible with the neighborhood of smaller, older homes. Comp Plan L-3.1 states new builders to ensure new or remodeled structures are compatible with the neighborhood and adjacent structures. The underground garage adds additional driveways into our narrow streets, invites traffic in instead of reducing it, and takes away the charm of tree-lined bucolic school grounds, replacing it with a more institutional project, which we find aesthetically harmful. I ask you to please look not only at how the building improves the campus, but also how this project looks to us who live here. We don't go to the school. Most Palo Altans don't go to this school. We see the outsides of the buildings. Please do not make this finding number 1 until any new expansion plans reduce impacts, not increase them, and residents' needs and interests are on a par equal with those of the school. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy Reed. Next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Alan.
Hello, can you hear me at this point?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Yes, I'm Alan Cooper, and I live directly across the street from Kellogg. From Castellea. And I live at a point where the building now breaks. I appreciate all the efforts of the commission and the architects of Castellea in improving the appearance of the Kellogg side of the building. My question today is about noise screening along Kellogg. My experience has been that this noise has come through the break. And I am wondering if it is possible to add a transparent panel along this break in the new building design on the inside so that it would deflect noise back into the circle and away from the neighborhoods. I would also ask on a different topic that during the massive construction of the buildings, that we add a system of real-time monitoring of air quality of particulate matters using the purpleair.com online monitoring system that would give us real-time and live control of the air pollution in the neighborhood. I will cede the rest of my time. Thank you for considering these requirements, these requests.
Thank you, Alan Cooper. Next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Hank. Hank, if you're there, can you please unmute yourself?
Yes, good morning. Good morning, board members. I live at 160 Melville Ave, about 185 feet from the planned underground garage exit. I noticed with interest that you have listened to the public and along with your input have influenced the school's architects to submit new drawings for the proposed Kellogg Avenue building. My hope is you will also hear the neighbors of the school who do not want the proposed underground parking garage. It is unhealthy in several ways, including its excavation and construction. If it is allowed to be constructed, it will continue to pollute and would likely be in place for a great many years. If it is built, the net gain is only 22 parking spaces. All the thousands of dump truck loads of dirt to be removed and the hundreds of cement mixers lined up to pour the concrete. Plus the dismay among many of the close by neighbors who will witness the commercialization of the neighborhood for 22 additional parking spaces. We don't think it is worth it. Shuttling in the students who currently arrive singly by car is a greener technology. It is unlikely you board members would welcome construction like this next door or across the street from your house. We feel the same way. The campus already has 86 parking spaces at grade and they can continue to be used with the new buildings being slightly reconfigured. The 86 spaces allow for an enrollment of 450, which is an 8% increase over the current cap. That is the percent increase that was given when the current CUP went into effect in 2000. Please see your way to recommending the plan going forward without an underground garage. Help preserve our neighborhood quality of life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hank Sousa. Next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Randy.
Good morning. My name is Randy Pop. I'm a resident of Palo Alto. I've been an architect here for 32 years and have been involved on both sides of the table at the ARB. As I do with many projects, I've closely followed the progress of this project through the city process. I want to thank the members of the board for their thoughtful and insightful review of this project. I am not affiliated with Castellea School in any way, but as a resident who cares deeply about the city, I appreciate the ways your guidance has influenced the project. More specifically, I'd like to voice my support of your suggestions regarding adjustments to the massing and refinement of the materials on Kellogg. With the revisions before you, I feel the massing is now visibly reduced from the prior concept, and I'm pleased with the way the building is broken into smaller sections. I'd suggest that any further breaks or changes might only become chaotic, and I am hopeful you will feel the same way. I'd like to commend WRNS Studio for their design and emphasize my feeling that the most recent adjustment strikes a good balance, creating a pleasant facade that is not overpowering to its context. The design now nicely bridges to the scale of the surrounding homes and the overall fabric of the neighborhood aesthetic. In regard to the trees, I see that they intend to remove 3 damaged oaks. I would urge you not to resist this. I understand this is being done for a number of reasons, but if they were my client, I would coach them out of an abundance of caution to proceed with this. Based on my read, those trees will need to be removed with or without improved new learning spaces. Tending to student and employee safety should be a paramount concern, and now is your opportunity to balance the removal with replacement. At this point, I believe the applicant has satisfied your request for suggested changes. More than that, they have created an elegant replacement for an aging set of outdated and obsolete buildings. I believe you can successfully satisfy the findings today and move this project forward. This is a great project which has improved nicely through the ARB process, and I urge you to register your approval consistent with staff's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy Pop. Next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Jessica.
Thank you. As many others, I've been following the collaboration efforts of staff, community, and Castellea, and would like to commend the tremendous effort to balance many perspectives. My name is Jessica Resmini, and I'm not affiliated with the project, but I'm joining this discussion as a resident of Palo Alto and a practicing architect. I also have experience working with PAUSD on the bond project related to Measure Z and modernizing learning spaces for students across Palo Alto. In both my personal and professional life, I support thoughtful progress and improvements to our education facilities. As we think about the future of our city, it's important to remember that 100 years ago, the neighborhood around Castellea was farmland. The city we love was built by pioneers and visionaries. Leland Stanford opening a university here intended for agricultural studies that has now become one of the preeminent research institutions in the world. Burge Clark and Robert Eichler both became icons in architecture, leading the way for movements in design right here on the streets of Palo Alto. Lucy Stern partnered with Clark and the city to leave a legacy to support the first children's library in our country. Palo Alto is a city that has been shaped by visionaries in the service of education, including Mary Lockey, who founded Castellea School in a novel effort to prepare young women to succeed at Stanford. The change before you in Castellea's modernized campus with underground parking is another important legacy in architecture and education in Palo Alto. The existing buildings are outdated and the new structures are sustainable and elegant. The materials draw from historic buildings on campus, settle gently into the fabric of the surrounding homes, and improve light and landscaping at the street level. The improvements suggested have improved the final product, creating a lovely cadence along Kellogg while maintaining a facade that feels cohesive and unified. Palo Alto is celebrated around the world for its innovators and visionaries, and Castellea is an essential part of that fabric. With its flexible learning spaces, sustainable architecture, and beautiful aesthetics, WRNS has designed a building that will enable generations of young women to be educated as our future leaders. I hope you will approve these plans. I firmly believe Castellea has arrived at an excellent compromise, and I eagerly look forward to this new legacy for students in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica Resmini. Next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Neva.
Good morning, ARB commissioners. My name is Neva Yarkin. I live on Churchill Avenue. I live 2 blocks away from Castellea. My family has owned this property on Churchill for over 60 years when Castellea was a boarding school. A new development in the city regarding traffic issues is that 6.5 weeks ago, on September 21st, the XCAP committee presented to City Council in a 6-3 vote to close Churchill Avenue for the train crossings. A new train crossing will happen sometime to enable Pali students to get to school. Nowhere in any of the documents is it mentioned about train crossings, which will have a major impact on traffic flow in Palo Alto and needs to be added to this conversation. It was mentioned last night at the PTC meeting that there are construction management codes. If that is the case, I would like to find out where that is listed because I have real concerns about safety issues during the construction period. Students, pedestrians, bikers should not be in a construction zone while attending school in temporary buildings. When Stanford was rebuilding housing, their construction zones were closed off to everyone. Enrollment should not be increased beyond 415 till all the construction is finished. The ARB Commission has an opportunity to make Palo Alto a more livable and innovative place to live. Looking at the Palo Alto Comp Plan 2030, we need to have new ideas and be creative rather than archaic as to how Palo Alto's future will be shaped. I believe environmental issues are Palo Alto's top priorities. Castellea should take bold steps to be a leader for the Bay Area on environmental issues. This could really happen with a satellite shuttling service for all Castellea students to alleviate traffic congestion and parking problems in the section of town. If satellite shuttling happens, a parking garage, which is not environmentally friendly, would not be needed at all. This would make Palo Alto a role model and a better place for the neighbors and citizens to live in. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Neva Yarkin. And our next and last speaker, please.
Yes, our next speaker is Becky.
Good morning. I'm Becky Saunders over here in Ventura, 1.6 miles from the school. Why am I watching today? Well, I want to track how the city's boards and commissions approach the overarching demands of a privileged institution to expand beyond legally allowed parameters. In Ventura, we are looking forward to the redevelopment of the Fry site and to welcoming new neighbors, but we are aghast at how the concerns of a significant number of Castellea's neighbors are being marginalized and ignored. Concerns such as density, massing, and an underground parking garage that is not even included as floor area, green gas emissions, as well as the removal of heritage trees. An organization of privilege appears to be able to bend rules to the breaking point because it suits them to do so. I mean, I know your job is to check the plans, but despite the claims of the applicant, I think the plans are still flawed. Plus, the applicant is in such a hurry that they show one set of plans in their presentation and a different set of plans in the packet. What is that about? Thank you for noticing that the plans didn't match. I know that's your job, that's what you do, but I point out that rushing through this process invites mistakes that will have lasting repercussions throughout the entire city. My primary concern is solving the mystery of the garage, but I also align myself with Andy Reid's comments about the inconsistencies between the plans, designs, and the law of the city. Yes, the design is attractive and has been greatly improved over the course of this process. I just wish it could be built on a site suitable and consistent with this grand design. This design doesn't belong at this site. Don't you see it that way? I mean, if friends in North Palo Alto can't get a square deal, how can we in modest Ventura get a fair shake? I would hope that you stop allowing equivocation for best evidence as pertains to the designation of the garage rather than on the city code. Thank you very much for hearing me today, and thank you for your service to our fair city.
Thank you very much, Becky Sanders. Vin, do we have any other speakers?
We do not have any more speakers for this item.
Okay, well, thank you very much to members of the public for your comments. You've all been fully heard. We'd now like to ask the applicant if they would like to make a rebuttal to the public comments. They have 10 minutes available. Is there anyone on the applicant team who would like to address or respond to these comments? Vin, do we have any?
You can hear me. This is Mindy Romanowski. Can you hear me? Can you?
Yes, good morning, Mindy. If you'd like to respond, you'll have 10 minutes. Vin, could you start a timer, please?
Do you need me to turn my video on? I can do that if you need me to.
That's up to you how you'd like to present what you have to say.
Okay, I will do that. And let me get my, can you see me? Okay, great. Okay, and I may at the end lend some of my time to some of the people on our team.
10 minutes total.
Thank you. I want to respond in no particular order to a number of the things we've heard this morning and in the narrative out there. There has been a narrative that Castellea is getting a grant of special privileges and they are intensifying the use. And I would tell you that this is simply untrue. To the contrary, our request to maintain the above grade FAR is a request to maintain the status quo that we have by right. Our campus predated zoning, and due to our current permits, which vest our square footage, those run with the land. So our application is simply asking to rebuild and replace a bit less FAR than we have right now. And as it are in the materials, when you compare the size of our parcel, which is over 6 acres, to the other lots in our same zone on a relative basis, our FAR is 7.2% less than what's allowed for other parcels in the zone when you do the math. And this is all in the letters in the record. Next, I want to address the parking facility. With due respect, the comments we've heard today that our garage has not been looked at are simply untrue. The full set of plans show the garage details, and our garage architect is here for questions, and I would invite any of you to ask those of him. As we have shared over the years, this parking facility was conceived of by neighbors to reduce impacts after a multitude of facilitated meetings between the school, the neighbors, and our architecture team. We did this for over 3 years with professional facilitators and mediators. Those meetings were opportunities to share ideas, obtain feedback, and then arrive at a plan. Indeed, the garage was what informed our site plan and was really kind of a gating issue for how we moved forward with the design before you today. As we know, the EIR confirmed there are no impacts that come with this parking garage. We know that your comp plan and the municipal code supports this facility as an accessory facility to a use permit. And it's also important that the professional analysis be considered and that we cut through some of the layperson's opinions that we've heard about whether it's safe to excavate or whether we're hitting a water table. Because if you look at the reports, we see that the professionals have determined it is safe to excavate and that this project does not impact a water table. So moving on, the tree comments we've heard, this has been asked and answered many times. We are very proud of the trees on our campus. We have no goal to get rid of any tree that is not, needed to build a few buildings, and that we have informed our site planning based on the tree locations. Our plans in the record show detailed locations of how we comply with the tree ordinance and how we are now even saving the mature redwood trees. We've changed our garage footprint, as you know. And then as recently as the last few weeks, we have even saved a few other trees that were flagged by members of the public throughout this public hearing process, specifically tree 102 and tree 94 and 95. Our landscape architect is here, and we also have feedback in the record from our arborist. I would invite everyone to see those materials. Chair Baltet, you did ask this morning about the steel beam, and while we were listening to the comments, I was able to confirm with our team that given the building rating, we believe we don't need to fire rate those beams. But we will provide that to you in writing if you're interested. We also heard questions today about noise. I want to just let you know our noise consultants are here if there are questions specifically and the commissioners want to hear from them. And before I pass it over to any other members of our team that want to speak, I just want to, in conclusion, say that the emphasis needs to be on the journey that has gotten us here, whereby our project has been driven by open communication, input from neighbors, input from city staff, analysis by professionals, including CEQA experts, noise consultants, traffic engineers, arborists. All of this was to ensure that not only we bring a project without significant impact from a CEQA standpoint, which is very technical, but also to address the perceived impacts and the impacts that are felt in the neighborhood that don't always show up in a CEQA document. Things like, how can we save more houses? How can we save more trees? So that goal was balanced with the other goal of educating more young women on a sustainable campus that complies with Palo Alto's very, respectful sustainability plan and is an amazing goal that all of Palo Altans should feel very proud about. This campus does that in a very aesthetically compatible way, as you saw with the designs today. So, in conclusion, I would implore you not to let the voices of the few who do not always base their comments on data in the record and analysis by professionals to diminish the voices of the many supporters you have heard, both in writing and in public comment. I would implore you to base your decision on real information that is proven with analysis. And with that, I want to just remind you that we have a team here for questions today. Our garage architect, our noise consultant, our landscape architects, our traffic consultant. And even though some of these questions we heard today are not in your purview, things like, the variance, I would still, if you have questions and you need clarification, we're all here to answer those for you. So I'm going to stop my video, and if anyone from our team wants to chime in, you can do so now.
This is Mike Bellinger, landscape architect. I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you fine, Mike. The purpose of this 10-minute period is to rebut comments from the neighbors. If you'd like to add to that, please go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify a comment about tree 89. In July, the project arborist met with the city arborist, and they agreed to doing a complete re-inventory update of all the trees on campus, canopy, diameter, and health condition. And the current plans show the updated canopy that was established in July. And I will clarify that with the arborist, but he had it at 50 feet, and that's what it's shown on the plans, but we'll go check on that.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, if there's nothing else from the applicant, we will close the meeting to public testimony. Is that right, Mindy? There's nobody in your gang who has anything else to add?
You know, if you would like, we do have our acoustic consultant, and we did hear some questions about noise. Phil, are you able to just respond to that? I don't know if you are able to at the moment, but please do if you can.
Yeah, the specific question I heard was about noise coming through the opening in the existing building from the inside circle across Kellogg Avenue. And the new building will close off that gap at grade, so there will already be a noise barrier there. And we actually did do an analysis to see whether an additional barrier on the second floor would make much of a difference. And what we found was that the difference would be imperceptible, less than a decibel for adding an additional barrier on the second level.
Okay, thank you very much. Why don't we close the meeting then to public testimony and bring it back to the board. I'd like to then start our board discussion of this project with David Hirsch. Whenever you're ready, David, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Adam. Really appreciate the further work on the details of the facade. Agree with a lot of the comments that it's a major improvement of the project. I reviewed the set of drawings. The drawings themselves, unfortunately, are not up to the same completeness as your presentation today. So next time around, I hope you can come in with, or to other clients, with a more up-to-date set of drawings that allows us to see where the project is going. It's a little difficult not to have those on hand and to get a project piecemeal like that. But I'm really happy to have a set of plans, a physical set of plans, rather than just the Zoom set of plans, because it's easier for us as architects to kind of review a project in detail, going back and forth through the plans, the elevations, the sections, the material illustrations. So thank you for the updated plans when we did receive them a week ago now. A major concern from the previous meeting was the unremitting length of the Kellogg elevation. And the new detailing of the one-story closer to Emerson side of Kellogg is a really significant improvement. The break in the entire volume, the interruption of the roof line, creating 3 discrete facade elements along Kellogg. It is what I was hoping for in the beginning would be a way of reducing the scale of the Kellogg elevation. and making it certainly fit the street in the residential neighborhood. The accent tile is also an improvement, and that use on the Emerson end of the building as another entry point really works quite well. And so I wonder why it couldn't have been used, or actually, I wonder why the break where it was first used closer to Bryant isn't also an entry or an exit or in some way related to that kind of function. And then I asked the question, well, it seems to be serving a purpose. It's describing entry as well as a reference to the gun building and the fascia of the gun. So why not consider it symbolically in these other areas? This is a suggestion, but it appears that this is the direction you're going in. So I'd like you to take a look at that. Unfortunately, we don't have elevations of the interior of the courtyard at a similar scale as the Kellogg facade. I don't think it's appropriate for us to approve a project unless we can see the whole project. And as you are improving the rest of the view of this building, why not give us the interior views as well? Who knows, we may have some comments to make, but it's certainly significant that the building is one building and we need to look at the whole building. We always get that in any proposal to us. My most significant concern here is really the limitation of this site to properly expand the program. As it is located in R1 residential district, surrounded by private dwellings, the program simply does not fit the site unless 1/3 of the space is located below grade. I don't see it's our role to question the planning department's acceptance of the FAR calculation, except as it affects the review of the ARB findings. We have to also be cognizant of the history of this school as a significant educational institute with an important role to play in the education of women beyond Palo Alto's borders too. Going back in the history of the project, I was intrigued to see the earliest schematic design concept where the entire center courtyard was excavated so that the basement level, this questionable educational level below grade, is a sunken public space. And the Kellogg side was exposed to daylight, and the inside basement level was, of course, exposed to that sunken courtyard. I was disheartened to see that that bold idea had died. It would have been an amazing amphitheater space for the performance of Greek tragedies, women's rights lectures, ballet performances, and many public events. But it is no longer. So you'll have to imagine present day functions serving those purposes. But most importantly, it would have been a source of natural light for the many classrooms and related teacher spaces of the basement program. Now with these spaces entirely below grade, natural light and air has become the scarcest commodity. The Kellogg site, walkable glass skylights, serves only 4 of the 20 or 19 below grade classrooms. The lobby staircase spaces draws light from limited skylight areas 2 floors away. Clear-story windows into the 3 basement classroom on a rendered perspective, that's in your drawing number A802. You know, there's those clear-story windows showed up in an elevation or perspective drawing of the Kellogg facade, but weren't included in the section. You showed another picture of them today, and they're there. And they're there because the landscape on the perimeter has provided a recess that allows the basement wall to be revealed and windows, clear story windows, to be placed in those below grade classrooms. So you have a method for bringing light to the inside of the building, and I think you overstated it, frankly, specifically Adam, of course, overstated its function in providing appropriate light for that basement area. I would suggest that you use your skylight idea, your perimeter walking light wells, to provide light almost in the entire perimeter of the school, so that you can really legitimately say that you have answered that issue of bringing natural light to the basement. There'd be other ways of doing it as well. And of course, you know, you could look into that, light wells or whatever else you would like to do. But if you could do more of what is there and bring natural light down to the classroom areas, I think it would be a great service to this building and to basically to the education of these young women, to not be held off from that opportunity. I want to go on to something else here, and that is, yes, okay. Well, it seems to me there's another opportunity here, that you have a 600, 700 square foot stair enclosure that connects the building, the Kellogg building, to the library and to the art department there. So that skylight, that element, could simply project through the roof, creating a skylight and bringing much more light down to the basement area. I'd like to ask you to look at that. I think it's an opportunity that you shouldn't give up on, that you can make light well out of that will provide a much stronger light to the basement area. So as you can see, that's my major concern here, is the light. So I would have liked to have seen an illustration, to put up an illustration of G006, if that were possible, or the temporary campus plan as well. Is that possible for you to do that?
Vin or any member of the applicant team, do we have the possibility to put up certain pages of the presentation?
I'm sorry, which presentation did you want to be on the screen?
G006.
One of the pages of the applicant's drawing set. I'm not sure they can pull that up at the last minute, David.
Okay, so
I have the web set open, so I can look for that sheet. What is it? G006.
Mm-hmm. And the temporary plan, I'm not sure what that is. I might need Adam to figure that one out.
It'll take me a while.
You want to go on to something else?
I'm gonna just continue then, Peter.
Please do that. Let's keep moving.
Okay, so Castellea is probably considered alternates to the phased construction, but I wonder whether they've ever considered moving the program off-site so that the entire project could be built in one phase. Certainly this would benefit the neighborhood residences and be a better answer to our finding concerning promoting the orderly and harmonious development of the city. I note that based on some recent experience, that Coverly is one reasonable place where it is possible to relocate temporarily to construct a temporary classroom without unduly disturbing existing community programs. Utilize the availability of the gyms, the pavilion, the theater, the auditorium, and the playing fields that are all there. And there is plenty of parking space and the ability to make a much better campus while the present campus is being renovated. I mean, I suggest this because of my concern that this is just, if you really consider, you've analyzed the traffic entering the campus on a normal day and the need for this parking garage, and the number of vehicles, including the vans that go to the railroad station to pick up students from other communities and bring them here. These are all going to be coming to this campus while it is in construction. And there are workmen who need to arrive as well. And there's trucks and trucks of dirt being hauled away and construction equipment coming onto the site and very loud demolition going on at the same time. I want to just read from a critique of the packet number 22 that we received today. It says, as other construction projects in Palo Alto have shown, construction vehicles and equipment block traffic lanes, reduce streets and sidewalks, access throughout the area, to concurrently allow a school to bring hundreds of students to the area with drop-offs, pickups, free parking. Adjacent streets will severely exacerbate what neighbors see as an excruciating process of noise, disruption, etc. The idea of allowing unmonitored access and parking during the process defies logic. Can the PTC, this is written for the PTC to analyze. In any case, you know, I think it falls on us to comment about this because it could be a very serious problem with trying so hard to keep the school on this site at the same time as all of this construction work. I mean, I state this with a lot of experience in construction where it is such a mess, you know, there's no way of reducing it. The dirt flies all over. You put construction fences around a property and they don't really sufficiently make it a useful place to have a school at the same time and to reside, since it is a residential community. I bring it to your attention because I think it's serious enough to deal with it now rather than wait for the disaster to happen later on. I also want to point out that there are benefits, of course, to moving the school temporarily. And one of them is you can do the whole project. And that's really significant now because it's a 3-year, which is, I think, a conservative estimate of time. Maybe it's a 4-year project by the time you're finished with it. And that's a hell of a long time for a disturbance to a whole community. If you could cut that in half by asking the school to relocate temporarily, I think it would be a benefit to all concerned. I haven't really focused on the aesthetics because I really am concerned that this is more serious. And Palo Alto should think carefully about this. I mean, to end on a good note, I think it's going to be a beautiful school. I'm absolutely impressed through the roof with the comments that were made by the architects today, that the detail is beautiful, and you've solved the Kellogg Street side. You haven't solved the lighting in my estimation, and you could do more of a job on that, but I look forward to this school and the way it fits into the residential community and the scale of it and the detail of it. And with those comments, I will end. Thank you.
Did you want me to put up that sheet you asked for, G006?
Yeah, I guess so.
Is that a yes, David?
Actually, to be honest, if the temporary campus plan would be available, that would be useful today as well.
Okay, I had that handy in my, but did you not want the G006 then?
Well, I'd rather have the temporary plan at this point.
Okay.
Why don't we continue on with other board members and come back to that as you get that ready?
I have it ready.
You have the temporary plan ready?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, put that up, please. Okay, David, so what's your...
Okay, so let's see. This is actually a new temporary plan.
No, this is the same one.
Well, you know what's different about it is, and because it's new to me, it's not in our set. It now has, it's a redoing of it. I can see that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so originally the plan extended into the Loki property, and there were 2 classroom elements in that plan. So this is 1 module less than the plan that's in our drawing. There were 20 classrooms in that one, and there are only 18 here. 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. Yeah, there's only 18 classrooms here. And what else is missing? There's a big circle to kind of imitate the, or at least bring back for time being, at least the circle into this particular scheme. And now that's been eliminated. So this is an awful lot of construction in a very limited area with an awful lot of kids in a construction zone. And not so much that they would be affected by the construction of the Kellogg end of the site. Imagine what it would really be with all the cars coming to this area, with all of the students being delivered to the area, with all of the trucks coming at the same time, with the workers coming early in the morning and trying to find places to park, in the neighborhood. I think this just reinforces what I'm concerned about here. And that really does, go back to our concern as a board about the effect on the neighborhood as a whole here. I ask you to consider that. Thank you.
Okay, David, thanks for pointing all that out about the temporary and the impact of construction. Are we ready to move on? If so, I'd like to see if Alex Liu would like to go next. Alex?
Sure. Okay, so I am, well, first of all, I'm going to thank the architect for the revisions. I think they were all done very well and well considered. And also thank you to Amy French and all the staff on the project, planning staff on the project. I think that the staff report was done really well, and everything was clear and easy to understand. So I am in support of the project. I can recommend approval today, I believe. I do have comments, but I think that those could all be addressed either by staff or by subcommittee. So, so I think the first one is, I will go into like findings, is for staff on package page 23, where you're referencing comp plan policies. There's a policy about having like the streetscape be a neighborhood amenity, and the draft language just the bike racks. And as I was walking around the site this week, I think that there's actually been a dramatic improvement in the landscape. So the landscape plans show really a variety of plants at a very small scale, and they provide a lot of visual interests for pedestrians. And I would say that landscaping improvement is on Bryant, Kellogg, and Emerson. There is some wording for some proposed language for a public art piece, perhaps on Kellogg, so that would be a visual interest element there. I think also on Kellogg, we're removing the existing maintenance building and trash areas. And so I think those are pretty unsightly at the moment. So putting those underground, I think, makes a dramatic improvement to Kellogg. Also on Emerson, there's an existing fence covered with ivy right at the back of the sidewalk. And in the new proposed project, that fence is being moved back substantially. And so all the landscape, and there's a large amount of landscape in front of that. So I think that that actually makes the Kellogg pedestrian experience a lot nicer. And then also, as I walk around the site, there are a lot of gaps in the existing street canopy, and the proposed plans are showing that all those gaps are being filled in. And so I think that's also makes it substantially nicer. Okay, on the new street trees, I did have a comment for staff that I think maybe we should review, if you haven't already reviewed it with the urban forestry, is that there are utility lines above Kellogg, and you're proposing large coast live oaks on there. And so I'm just asking if that was considered, and if the city is able to prune the trees around the existing utility lines. Also along Kellogg, the proposed plans are showing new manzanitas along the curb, like in between the curb and the sidewalk. And as I was reviewing it, I think that there are several existing magnolia trees, and the magnolia trees in Palo Alto typically have very shallow roots, and they're really at the surface. And usually the soil is like hard as a rock. So I think that maybe if staff could review that, maybe perhaps on site as part of the tree monitoring, that we really look at that carefully. I don't want like the surface roots of the magnolias to be removed for new plants if it will kill the trees. Okay, also on Kellogg, I think it was in our staff report about the sound impacts at the building breaks, and I think, as I understood it, I think there was less than 1 decibel for things that are happening in the circle, and there could be, if there are seminars up on the second floor terraces, but that if it was a solid railing, that you could reduce the sound by 5 decibels. And I think that's what the neighbors were asking. So I think that maybe we should consider that in there as a condition of approval. Okay, and then my last item, which I really hate to go around in circles about, is on the Kellogg facade, on the pull-out drawer where you used to have, where there was a metal siding, or like a standing seam metal siding. I think maybe we should consider putting that back in. And that's just, I was looking at the details of the shingle and the parapet cap, and I'm not so crazy about that. And so I could approve the project as is, but I think we should maybe think about that. Typically, shingles die into something more substantial than just little sheet metal flashing. So, yeah, but otherwise I can recommend approval of the project today. I think David has a fair point about construction staging, and also having a temporary campus on site and all the construction worker parking. It seems like if the temporary campus was off-site, that would give the construction crews a lot more flexibility, and it would de-intensify the use. So I think that's a good idea, but I don't think that would affect the way I vote on this particular project, because we haven't typically voted on construction impacts in the past. I know that sort of changed with the current comp plans, but we haven't historically done that. So that's all that I have. Thanks, Peter.
Alex, could I get you to point out to me, you were talking about going back to a metal finish. Can you show us which elevation that was on?
So that's on the Kellogg elevation, and that's on the one-story element. They were calling it like a drawer pull, like it's a and if you want a sheet number.
Yeah, I want something distinct so I can see it.
I can share my screen. I have it open, I think.
That'd be great if you could, Grace. Rosma.
Is this it, Alex?
Yeah.
You're suggesting.
I think it looks fine in the.
Can you make your
Yeah,
pitch?
I mean, it looks fine in the person. I'm sorry?
Make your pitch again on what you think that piece should be. I didn't understand you the first time.
So the original plans had that as like some sort of metal, perhaps standing seam. And I think we should just, I'm just saying, it's just say, I'm throwing out to the board to just consider that. And that's really mostly looking, when I look at the detail of the parapet cap and the shingles. Typically you would hide, yeah, I don't have it in front of me, but typically you would hide the top course of shingles. You would tuck it in under something, you know?
Yeah.
Like under a, and here it's just a profile of metal.
But are you suggesting increased detailing or just changing the material altogether?
Perhaps it could be either.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure we understand what you're saying here, which I do now. Thanks for sharing your screen.
Okay, and that's all that I have.
Great, thank you, Alex. Grace, your turn next, if you don't mind.
Yes, thank you. I'll start also with some thank yous. I see that we have come on this journey, and I do very much appreciate the process that the City of Palo Alto upholds in terms of our multiple boards and their various purviews. I want to just first, though, thank the community for your attendance and your attention, your careful listening, your communication of your thoughts and feedback on the project. I also want to thank the city staff and our fellow board members at HRB, as well as PTC, and of course the council, in terms of how this is a joint effort. Our purview is really to make those findings. And, you know, I do want to say that I'm very impressed, and thank you to the applicant for being very thoughtful and layered in your approach and always trying to do better in terms of planning for sustainability. So I feel like this project is building a future. And as we know, the site is beloved, as our, you know, every site in Palo Alto, but particularly this site for its history and for kind of just the history of the use that has been at this site, its integration with the neighborhood, how that relates to our findings. I do want to say that I feel that the sets that we have seen, and it's a lot of information. Thank you again, city staff, Amy, and Jody and Ben, in terms of providing so much data. And the data is important because all of this adds up to how we interpret. And, you know, I guess in an ideal world, I love how our board, and thank you fellow ARB board members, in terms of providing, looking at the sets very carefully, listening to each other. I think that the applicant generally tries to hear what's loudest in terms of our volume and kind of comments that are repeated, and we try to come to consensus. And sometimes we don't. Sometimes there are things that are slightly off, and sometimes we're aligned. But I feel like the applicant here has done quite well and has been adept and versatile in sharpening their pencils and bringing forth responses, for example, to our comments from the previous two meetings. So I'm just going to go down this list of some of the comments that I voiced and that others voiced a little bit more loudly. But first, the findings that we are asked to uphold, and hopefully we get to a vote today. I very much feel that the findings are definitely being met by this project in many different ways. And I wanted to go back to my colleague board member Lou's comments on some of the findings. But first I'll just start with, probably what we've been discussing the most and focusing our comments on has been that Kellogg Street exterior elevation, an important edge to this project. And thank you, applicant, because I do see that has come forward, and my comments were really related to the materials and color, and it's so wonderful to see that there has been careful attention, again going back to the gun building, which is part of our findings in terms of seeing how we are preserving and respecting and adapting. And so, the gun building, you've taken those cues very well, and you've looked at and seen the shingles, you've seen the green and the tile, and also the rich kind of textural approach. I very much appreciate how the green tile is being repeated on that Kellogg Street elevation. The battens definitely are reminiscent, I think, of a previous time, and preserves and integrates into this new facade harmoniously. There also is this material, the shingles, and you can just talk about it right now in terms of this thought that perhaps, and board member Lou brings up, there might be a little bit need for, I didn't put that in my notes, but I could see just making sure about the detailing of that cap. And perhaps that is something that could return to a subcommittee, because the shingles is reminiscent and really part of the gun building. It's so much a part of the overall materials template as we walk around the complete campus on the exterior. My preference is that the shingles would remain as presented in the set that we are reviewing today. I also wanted to go to the comment regarding, and briefly about the shear wall and how it is showed in our set and the perspectives. I do see that vertical shear wall and the intent of the applicant to do even better in terms of integrating this, I don't like the word, but it is like belly band. It is a separation between the first and second floor, which decreases the mass. And, I am in support of that. I also would like to hear from board members just on their thoughts in terms of how it is shown in our set and then how it was shown in the presentation. I do feel that is a change that didn't show up in our set. However, it's very easy to digest and understand it, because you're proposing that material choice of the belly band separating that first and second floor around the building in the current set and elevation. So if that did want to go back to a subcommittee and just looking at that detail, that would be one way to take a second look. I'd like to hear from the others on that. And then, so in regard to the Kellogg elevation, I think members of the public and our board members have said it, for me, that one break that was presented at the second hearing was very much appropriate and appreciated. I think that the embellishment with materials and a finer grain and kind of the further depth in how that facade comes in and out and recedes works very well. I thank my fellow board members in asking for more in terms of even decreasing the mass further. And I think you've achieved it very well. I appreciate the use of the tile that is in two planes, that it also, in terms of how it begins to model or define the porch, it is very positive. So the other things that we discussed, a couple of other pieces that I brought up my comments and other board members discussed, was just this landscape proposal. So thank you. The enlarged landscape plans, very clear. I teach a bit, and I would show that landscape set as a teaching set. It is very clear. It outlines the approach. It describes the sustainability, the bioswales, plant species. So the very minor comment that I had, and this is perhaps just something about maintenance, is I love the ferns and the grasses, and I'm looking at the Calamagrostis, it's just the feather reed grass. That actually grows quite large, and the grasses can be kind of unsightly if not maintained properly. So I just want to make sure that there is proper maintenance, there's cutback when the weather turns, and how that actually that feathery grass, and because you show it also in your photos, can look kind of, it can dominate in terms of its light brown kind of color, and it will decrease. I mean, I have mixed thoughts on that choice, but I think that it would be fine just to make sure about how it layers with the other grasses and ferns, particularly on the Kellogg Street facade. I saw that it actually is on 3 sides of the campus. But on the enlarged landscape plans, it is wonderful to see that the landscape on all sides of the site and the proposals are terrific. And there's been such a strong focus on how to preserve trees, how to relocate, how to plan for the canopy and the shade. I have full confidence in, well, our city staff in terms of arborists and who has been talking to whom. It is a lot of data, and there maybe is some places where you need to go back and make sure. I do think our city staff and our arborists and the applicants, I mean, I do feel that that actually will go forward in a positive way. And so I'll leave it at that. The other piece that I wanted to talk about was, and is part of my mind, the landscape proposal, is this family of fences and walls and gates. And thank you, Amy, for in your presentation showing that, and to the applicant for making a small change to that acoustical wall in terms of a template now, just a family of fences and walls that begin, for me, to speak to kind of the historic nature of that, the fences and walls and gates that exist on all sides. And I think that the traditional and the contemporary approach work together quite well. Okay. And now let's talk about a little bit more about something new. I did see, oh, I'm sorry, in the materials, I did want to also just mention that the champagne anodized color, which is warm and also kind of an addition, slight change from last. I'm in full support of that in terms of the overall palette. So again, part of this landscape proposal, the public art that was just shown as some ideas right now, I just encourage that might move forward. I know that would be at a future date and might involve city staff and perhaps even a presentation of the Public Art Commission or some kind of putting heads together. I think that with the landscape, if it's integrated well, could be a terrific addition. And thank you, Board Member Liu, in terms of going to the findings and finding where, you know, that public art piece might show up in the language as if we move forward to approve. And then also calling out I'm in full agreement with removing the existing unsightly maintenance building, fences moving back, and also just landscape improvements on the 3 streets would be, I think, very welcome additions for me and to the findings. And in terms of acoustics, my feeling is there's a report. The consultant is here. City staff has been working well. I don't feel the need for that additional remediation on the 2nd level. However, I also would like to hear from other board members regarding that acoustical improvement that was suggested by Board Member Liu. It might be something that could come back to a subcommittee. So I guess in closing, I think I've covered all of my comments. I do want to just thank my fellow board members, city staff, and look forward to a further discussion with some of our board members today before making a motion.
Thank you, Grace. Very thoughtful comments. Ozma, it's your turn if you'd like to go next.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I'll try to keep this brief because I feel like a lot of what I was wanting to say has been said in some ways or another. But I'll start with saying that I do appreciate the updates to the Kellogg facade. I appreciate the comments from the board encouraging those changes, and I appreciate the applicant responding to those changes. This facade is looking better than it's ever looked, I think, since we've seen it. I would not support changing that part of the material to standing seam, but I would support looking at the detailing of how that parapet meets the planter as part of the subcommittee, assuming that that detail will be visible on the facade. I think the shingles make sense, but it's true, there is a treatment that needs to happen to that parapet that will be visible once it's further developed, that is not currently visible. Sorry, let me cross these out while I write these out. Yeah, it's interesting. When I was looking at the elevations, I flagged those concrete shear walls as kind of question marks. So while it is too bad that that change didn't get into our set, I appreciate the applicant having the foresight to know that that is unsightly, and the change that was made that we saw in the presentation today is an improvement. That would have been a comment that I would have suggested the applicant come back and do something else with those walls. So I appreciate the change, and I appreciate that we can see that here today. So I do think that those are improvements to the facade, and I don't know if as part of the conditions that we make that note as well. One issue that I would like more detail on is the tile patterning. The tile sample that we saw in the materials board was quite tiny, and it's a little unclear, especially with the renderings that we're seeing, how that tiny tile is being applied across that whole surface. More detail needs to happen, I think, for that. That could go to a subcommittee, I think. But I do think that is really important, because what we're seeing in the renderings are kind of like a multi-color tile that looks maybe vertically aligned, and the tile that I saw looked like it might be more of a subway tile, which are two very different feels. So I want to make sure that the tile ends up getting to the feel that we're seeing here in the rendering, which is sort of a light and kind of a glossy accent. Board Member Hirsch's suggestion about adding more light around the periphery, I think, is a good one. I would be in support of that suggestion. I think the efforts that have been made currently in the drawings and per the application's presentation that show all the different ways that light makes it into the building through the skylights and through the walkable light wells, you know, I would say having more of that wouldn't be a bad thing at all. I appreciate how much there is, and I think urging the applicant to consider more of that is a good thing. Really appreciate the other sustainability measures that are incorporated in this building. I don't mind the solar panel on the roof. I think aesthetically, you know, having a little bit of visibility on there is fine. I kind of actually like that accent in some ways. I agree with Board Member Liu's notes on the landscape. For the railing on the second floor terraces, I have seen, you know, clear, you know, glass sound barriers that could be used there. I guess I would hesitate to require that unless I knew how frequently those terraces would be used. You know, I don't know if classes are being conducted up there or the noise level that is expected of those terraces. From the appearance of it, it might be minimal. So potentially I could be open to seeing something there if it makes sense, but only if it makes sense programmatically, which would require further discussion with the applicant. So maybe that could be a subcommittee thing. Yeah, appreciate the mullion color for champagne. That's the majority of my notes. So overall, I can feel like I meet the findings with a few items going to subcommittee. This project is really good looking, and it'll be, you know, a really good project if it is executed the way it's presented. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ozma. It's my turn now. Before I start, though, I want to say that I'm impressed that it really seems to me that we're all listening to each other. And I like to hear our comments coalescing together. The building is improving and it feels good. Okay, that said, I'm still having trouble with the overall compatibility, how well the building fits into the neighborhood it's in. And I'd like to just put for the record the 3 reasons why I think it isn't really compatible. One is that the building has an 18-inch high metal finished facade, which is 120 feet plus 76 feet along Bryant, 128 plus 55 plus 100 feet along Kellogg, and then another 160 feet along Emerson. I just feel that that size and that continuous length of element is too much to fit into the neighborhood that it's in. That is compounded by the fact that it's exactly the same height, the same elevation everywhere. So it just reinforces that consistent size of the building. And I believe that's inappropriate in a residential neighborhood. The other issue I have is that there's the basic design motif is one of 12-foot tall curtain wall glazing panels facing out into the residential neighborhood. And I'm concerned that's just a big pieces of glass that will need some sort of sun shading, especially on Kellogg. Even yesterday, the sun was very bright out there. We'll need some sort of privacy screening, even on the second floor. Those classrooms will be very open to the street for wandering students' eyes in or out. And then at night, anytime a classroom is occupied at night, that's a large bit of night pollution for a quiet residential neighborhood. So for those reasons, I'm just really concerned that it doesn't fit into the neighborhood. All that said, and having listened to all the testimony today, I'm not sure my concerns rise to the level of not meeting the required findings. And so I do not think they will prevent me from being able to support the project, but I want to state that for the record. I've just been concerned about that. I have a different set of concerns regarding the swimming pool, and that's more to do with what I see as just incomplete presentation of what's going on. But again, as I stood there yesterday for quite a while trying to understand how this was going to fit in, and it really is a 15-foot deep in the ground concrete wall box with a swimming pool in it. And at places, the concrete, as best I can tell, is only a few feet from the edge of the pool. And we don't have any real details or elevations of how that's going to be treated or finished, how that's going to relate to the sound wall, which will make it closer to 20-something feet tall. There's a very large oak tree, a beautiful live oak, on the left-hand side as you're standing on Emerson, which the drip line extends into, I'd say, almost 10 feet beyond the edge of where the retaining wall will be. So I'd like to have staff check and investigate that, but I just can't see how a tree of that stature could survive this much construction. A 15-foot cut, 10 feet into the drip line of an old live oak tree, and a really beautiful one, I think will be the end for that tree. I think it just needs to be addressed how they plan to do it. Additionally, the swimming pool has on its, what I say, the right side, as you're standing on Emerson again, it seems to be a series of functional spaces, perhaps a locker room or some mechanical stuff. And on top of that is some sort of a roof element, which just hasn't been described anywhere. And I'm just curious as to what that is or how that's going to be treated. As well as next to that again is the ramp, the service ramp, which cuts into the ground there. And again, there's no detailing on how the fencing around that is going to be treated. That's next to the main drive into the circle. And I believe that will be quite visible from the campus, from the center of the circle. And how that railing, which is very important, it's a big safety issue, is treated is critical. And yet there's just zero evidence of that. Additionally, there is a beautiful live oak tree, again, at what is basically the end of that service ramp, right at the edge of the circle. That's tree number 155. Again, that tree is slated to be removed. And I wonder if, again, thinking more about how that ramp works, maybe you could save the tree, which would help mitigate the impact visually from the center of the campus. But to me, the pool is really just a whole bunch of questions about how it's really going to work, what the spaces are going to be like inside around the pool, and how that's going to integrate with the campus, what that structure is to the right of it. I just don't think we have enough information here, honestly. That really concerns me. And I'm hopeful that we can protect tree 89 so it really will survive. And I'm hopeful that we can get the applicant to revisit tree 155 to try to keep that one. I'm concerned about some of the proposed exterior lighting. Ozma brought this up. Fixture ZY1, A, B, and C are 16-foot tall, some sort of uplights, as I can tell, proposed to be along, at least as I can tell again, along Kellogg Avenue. And those don't seem appropriate to me in that location. Again, at night, they'll be quite bright. And certainly we don't have much information, just a very small cut sheet of what they're supposed to be like, how they fit into the project. And then my last concern really is coming around again. I just think that in spite of the improvement having a package of drawings, it's really incomplete and it's inadequate. To be honest, gang, we are getting 1/32nd scale elevation drawings of this project. Which is tiny. And I get that, we have to be able to read plans, but the native drawing of these is 1/16 scale, which is already pretty small. When was the last time we had a project of this magnitude where we accepted elevations at this scale? The floor plans are at 1 inch equals 20. It's also a tiny scale, reduced by half for what we're looking at. It's just not possible to understand and really warrant some of these details. David raises good questions, very legitimate questions about the daylighting. And I'm unable to, with these plans, I'm really just unable to figure out what's actually happening. It's hard to pass judgment on it. And it seems to me that it's not an unreasonable ask to get plans at a larger scale with more detail. I'm also distressed to find that the elevations are inconsistent. This morning with the shear walls I get, but if you look at, it's page A320, is it? 302 maybe. A302 is their elevation sheet, and the elevation 2, the west elevation, is intended to be the interior courtyard of the long building, except on the left, it's just not correct. The building is connecting to another building there, and it's just not shown properly. On the right, that's where the building has an L, it comes back at you, and that's not a suitable drawing to explain what's happening. And I'm sorry, but I don't think these are complete enough or descriptive enough drawings to really justify what we're about to approve. I really would like to see drawings at a finer scale that have been completely updated. I can appreciate, and I agree with Ozma's comments, that the shear wall elimination is an improvement. But what we're approving becomes a record. And I think it's really a mistake to just leave it to staff to figure out what was said at a series of public hearings, to take just a few perspective sketches from the architect, which seems to change constantly, as the record. The record needs to be a full set of detailed drawings that are accurate and correct. And I'm having a tough time with that. I'm also struggling with some of the more technical details that I pointed out. If there's going to be drain pipes dropping down from the projecting eaves of the building, I would really like to see how and where that's done. It's not that I don't have confidence that it can be done or that it will be done nicely. These architects seem very capable, but not to be figuring that out up front, it just seems inappropriate of us to be approving it at this stage when that's the case. If the ceilings inside the classrooms really do have a 24-inch or even 30-inch drop ceiling there, how that's reflected on the facades, it seems important to me. And I'd like to see what they're really thinking about that. There's a number of these kind of questions that I just don't think have been fully resolved. So my goal will be to overall support the project, but I'd like to see it come back to us with a lot of these questions answered, as well as numbers of questions that the rest of the board members have brought up. So I do not support approving this and sending it to subcommittee. I just think there's too many things still to go on that. So that's how I feel. Do we have any other feedback now? Everybody said their piece.
I'm happy to chime in with a few thoughts, and thank you everyone for comments. And on Peter, on yours, I did want to just make some remarks, and just in terms of just seen a lot of sets, all of us on this board over the years, on a project of this size, often the elevations are of a smaller scale. There's an effort on the applicant in terms of enlarged elevation, multiple sheets, also enlarged perspectives that are very well done in terms of showing materials without trees. And I believe we didn't ask for anything enlarged and beyond what they've more than, in my mind, given us a lot of material. But I understand your comment regarding the area that we all see in terms of where the shear walls were shown. And so, I did want to just go back to our group, and if there's consensus that is where, a portion of our board or, may review it again. When I was taking notes from what all of us were saying, it seemed like that was one of the comments in terms of where we see a shear wall and the elevation, that would come back. And perhaps, I would feel comfortable with the subcommittee to see that with the belly band in that location. The other piece that I just wanted to bring up was, in terms of this exterior landscape light, if there's enough of us on the board that would like to see that come back, that seems like it could be a larger scale cut sheet, right, with the photo and an actual key plan, and to show that at a subcommittee level. On the acoustical rating, it's just, that could be a discussion that is shown as well. I mean, I don't feel strongly about that, but if we were to craft a motion for this project to have a few subcommittee items, I did want to go back to what Uzma said, the tile pattern, easily something that is seen at the subcommittee level in terms of what is that pattern. We have a sample, and the cap shingle. So those were the things that I wrote down, and I'd love to hear from others on comments now that we've gone around the table.
Well, I've got 6 things in my quick jotted list here that I've heard people say that could take some more work. And that's just, Grace, to me, that's just getting to beyond where it's an appropriate thing for a subcommittee to deal with. They're not individually huge, although some of them could be. But this is an important project, and I believe we should really be getting a complete, thorough package that we can all agree on. The subcommittee approvals tend to be much less rigorous in my experience. Shall I go through this then, and we can all chime in and see if there's other items? At least we're working towards either a subcommittee list or giving an applicant instructions.
That would be great.
So the first, yes, the wall on Kellogg Avenue, the shingled wall. What I've heard the majority of the board say is we want to see more detail on how the top of that wall is finished off. Alex, I'm afraid I haven't heard any other support for changing it back to metal. So I think the shingles are what the board seems to be singling in on. But I think it's legitimate. I myself think it's legitimate that this detailing isn't quite right. The second thing is to see some sort of paving tile patterning installation and patterning details for the green decorative tile. Is that about right, Uzma?
Yes. Yeah. How the tile is implemented, the size.
Okay. The third issue that I heard Grace mention, I didn't hear anybody else, but it seems reasonable to me, was a question about the feather grass, if that's an appropriate choice for the landscaping. Grace, do you want to elaborate on what that really is?
Oh, and I should say that my comment is on maintenance. So just that there's an eye on how that's maintained, so it doesn't get too unruly, since it's a very versatile plant that can do very well and create kind of more of a dominant effect. And I did see it both in the foreground and in the middle layer. And so it's a minor comment that relates to just making sure about maintenance.
So you're just asking the applicant to consider that choice once more?
Absolutely. No need for further review unless other people.
Okay. So that's a minor thing. Do other members of the board concur or feel that's not appropriate? I'll take a silence as yes. David has asked strongly to consider additional means of getting daylight to the lower level classrooms. I heard Uzma support that, and I support that. That's a bigger deal. David, do you want to make a pitch for explaining what that really is and whether that could be a subcommittee item or it needs more design work? David, are you listening to me?
David, you're on mute if you're saying anything.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, no, it's a very significant issue here. We have to make that basement really work as a school building, and it has to have as much natural light as is possible. So I think, that has to be explored in detail on the courtyard side as well, because there are a lot of classrooms in the basement that face the courtyard. And that affects circulation on the ground floor, affects the landscaping on the ground floor, et cetera. It really is a significant piece. Railings and whatever.
What I'm trying to do, David, is come up with a sentence or two that we can give to the applicant. What are we asking them to do regarding the daylight?
Explore expanding daylight methodology throughout the project.
Throughout the project or to the lower level classrooms?
Well, to the lower level classrooms, but I also suggested they consider taking the significant node between the art building and the main building and bringing in daylight from the top of it. It's about a 600, 700 square foot square that is circulation throughout the building, and it could be a skylight element. It could go to the full height that's allowable for this building. So I think it's a broader exploration, broadest possible exploration of bringing light to the basement.
Okay, I'm not sure you're going to keep Ozma with you on that one. Ozma, what's your take?
Well, based off of the applicant's presentation, I thought I did see a skylight that went to that circulation space that sort of meets that request. My support of this was really more about, so the applicant currently has some walkable glass that brings light down to the lower levels.
That's right.
So I was in support of adding more of those conditions around the building, because I did only see 2 conditions, which I think is it's a minor request. In subcommittee, you could see that they've added, it's a very it's not something that's visible on the streets. It's not going to really affect the aesthetics, of the project as it relates to the environment, but it's really more about adding more light to the lower levels and making more space perhaps between the building and the landscape to provide for that.
Okay, Grace and Alex, do you want to chime in at all? Is there any more support for this idea?
I'll say I don't feel strongly. It's not a comment that I've made in the past 2 other hearings, and I feel like daylight is a strength that they brought to the project. And
okay, so you're satisfied as it is then?
If there's a majority of the board that feels like it would warrant further study and review at a subcommittee level, I'm open to it.
Okay. Alex, do you want to comment, or do you stand with what you've already said?
Yeah, no, I'm with Grace on this one.
Okay, fine. So I support what Ozma says. I think a small level of additional studies could be appropriate. I'm sorry, David, I don't think it's necessary to do a wholesale re-envisioning of the daylighting in all the buildings at this point in the process. So
okay, I have one more that I did raise, Peter, that hasn't been mentioned, and that is we haven't seen a single large-scale elevation of the courtyard facades.
We're gonna come to that one in a second, David. It's on the list here.
I can hold off.
We've heard from the public, and then I heard Alex and Ozma discuss the possibility of having a sound barrier of some kind at the breaks between the building on facing Kellogg. I support, again, in concept doing that. I support, I think, what Ozma said, which is that you'd like to make sure that it's programmatically necessary first before asking an applicant to do that. David and Grace, where do you stand on that issue?
Frankly, I have a comment about that. I was really kind of surprised to see that as an open area and not a through connection, sort of an internal connection. It is set back, of course, the corridor is set back from the facade. And as it would be on the other Emerson end, which is also all the way up, is on the second level. It's a interior connection. I'm surprised that it isn't an interior. It's a whole other subject matter, and nobody's really talked about it to date. So,
Yeah, the point I'm trying to bring up is one several board members discussed, which was asking the applicant to put some sort of a transparent sound mitigation barrier.
Yeah, I don't see it's a major issue as a sound barrier issue.
So you don't think it's necessary, or you don't oppose having it, asking them to do that?
I think the use of that could be monitored by the school.
Okay. And Grace, I didn't hear your opinion on that one.
Not feel strongly. I didn't bring it to the table and don't see a need. However, if, you know, I guess I'm confused. I'm not sure if the majority of the board is in support of having that come back for review.
Well, I think we have, Alex mentioned it, Ozma supported it, and I support it in concept, although maybe Alex, could you explain more carefully what you're thinking?
Well, no, I think the issue is sort of clear, is that there's a potential for noise, right? If you have an outdoor terrace, it's facing the neighbors are concerned about it. It seems like a small ask by the neighbors, so I think that we should consider it. The acoustical consultant has weighed in. There is a 5 decibel reduction if we do some sort of solid railing. So it seems like a small ask from my point of view.
I support what you're saying, that we're asking them to essentially consider, right, or to study, find a way to potentially put a barrier there. I mean, are we asking them to define?
Yeah, I think that's the right. Yeah, consider it.
Okay, I don't see any harm. I support that.
If you look at, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Are you in support of it as well, Ozma?
I am, yeah. If you look at the floor plan AB 101, which shows the floor level 2, I would say it's a bit more important on plan north, the opening plan north. The opening plan south looks like it's more of a balcony. It's not really like a potential circulation space, but the space plan north looks like it could be a potential circulation space. And so potentially something transparent there makes sense.
Okay, well, look, I support what Alex said, and I think you do too, Ozma. So I would think that would be on the list of either revisions to come back or subcommittee items.
Yeah, I think it's a subcommittee item.
So we have had David repeatedly ask, and I've strongly asked that the elevations get corrected. I haven't heard from Alex, Grace, or Ozma a definitive statement regarding whether you support that or not. Are the elevations sufficient as they're presented now?
I think in my comments I said that the change that was presented today with the shear wall is what I would like to approve, but that would be the only change to the elevations.
Okay.
And I don't think that warrants reprinting everything.
And I concur with Ozma's comment there.
Okay, well, look, David, there's only 2 people supporting what we're saying, so
yep,
that's the way it is. You know,
sorry, did we hear from board member Liu? I didn't hear him say.
Well, it's up to Alex to speak up if he wants to put into these things. I mean, Alex likes to keep his counsel, so. What do you think, Alex?
No, I'm in agreement with Ozma and Grace, and I don't really see a lot of, I'm not sure I see the added value of having a complete set of drawings come back to a full board.
Okay. Well, we're even talking to a subcommittee now. I mean, is this something we want to make them represent a correct set of elevations, or are we happy with what we have right now?
Subcommittee.
Yeah, no, I mean, we do need a set of drawings, and I think it could go to the subcommittee.
Okay. The only other, I have 3 items, but I'm the only one who brought them up. So lacking any more support, I don't know what to say. I was concerned about the swimming pool, about 2 of the trees, and the finishing on the service ramp. Does anyone else support that?
Let's go one by one, Peter.
Okay. I think the swimming pool is still poorly designed or poorly defined. And the building next to it especially, we don't even know what's going on there, how the roof of that is being treated, or what it's really going to look like. And I think they need to present to us what the full design is on the swimming pool area.
Which building are you talking about? The Fitness and Athletic Center?
Well, let me find the plan for you.
It's 100.
Oh, it's an existing building, I think. The fitness.
Oh, no, this is new.
No, 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 no.
I'm sorry, I'm still trying to figure this where it is.
AB 100.
AB 100, David?
Yeah.
Yes, AB 100, drawing number 2. So what that's showing, let me explain that more carefully, I guess. The swimming pool itself, starting on the left-hand side, when you stand in that parking lot, that tree 89 is just to the left of the swimming pool here, and the drip line extends well into the perimeter of the existing building. That's how you can tell that it's almost over the edge of the swimming pool itself. On the right-hand side, there's some functional elements inside the building with a curved upper right corner to it. And the top of that has some sort of a flat roof structure closer to grade, I gather. But I just don't know anywhere what that's going to be. And then this service ramp as it goes down doesn't have any explanation of how it's treated at the top level, again, closest to the campus. So those are my issues with this whole thing. And I don't know that the design is bad, I just don't know what's here. I would like to see more detail and thought and make sure that the tree 89 especially is going to be okay.
Would it be okay to ask the applicant, if I look at the south elevation on AB 302, I don't see anything that goes above that perimeter fence.
Sure, if you want to ask the applicant back, I'm all for that. It's you're the one with the tight time constraint, I believe, Osma.
I do, I have to leave very soon.
So,
but I think it'd be good to get clarity on what, if I didn't read that as a building, so it would be good to find out what that is.
Well, looking at the 1 in 40 plan, there's clearly a bunch of doors into rooms that, it's where I would put a locker room of some kind.
It says below grade pool equipment storage.
Is the applicant still with us? Can we ask the applicant for clarity? Vin, is it possible to unmute them?
Adam is unmuted.
Yep. Can everybody hear me?
Yes. Hi, Adam. Can you explain to us plan number 2 on sheet AB 100, please?
Okay. Yeah, and I'm actually looking back up at sheet. Also, it's important to look at AS 101 just to get a sense of what's at grade and what's not. Okay. And so, Peter, you picked out something really critical there. That's true. There's a ramp that drops down below grade that takes care of service and access to the project. But the plan you're looking at that calls out all of that equipment is below grade. There's no building on top of it. And so it's literally going to be, it's at grade. There's no structure there that you would see from the street. So there's a retaining wall on the ramp side that basically holds grade, and all of that storage equipment, everything is at the level of the pool. So it's at the below grade level.
So is there a roof over all that equipment?
There's a structured roof there, and the intent is to landscape that. That would be, there's no roof as in, like a first floor roof. It would literally be at grade.
Yeah, so it's a roof at grade. The entire building is below grade.
That's correct.
Okay, and what is the building to the left of it says heat pump on our drawing here? What is the structure to the left of that, the long, narrow rooms there?
On the other side of the pool, one second, and let me get to the same.
On drawing number 2, floor plan pool.
Can you share that view again, Amy?
Yeah, can we pull that up so we're all looking at the same thing?
Sure.
Thanks, Amy.
So on this drawing, to the right of the swimming pool
Correct.
is a large, narrow set of rooms, one bigger than the other, with what looks like doors coming in from the swimming pool area. What is that? What are those spaces?
You're talking
Those are-
about this one and this one?
Yes, exactly.
It's a series of storage
Nice.
spaces and mechanical spaces, pool equipment, heat pump. Those are all the things that are servicing the pool.
I see, okay. And that then has a roof that's at grade and landscaped somehow?
That's correct. That is correct.
And is there any detailing on how that's done? What the landscaping is like, or?
We don't have it here, but we can definitely get that to you, Peter. Not a problem.
Okay. Well, look, that okay, thank you, Adam. That I think Ozma explains what we're talking about.
Mhm.
And so that goes back to what I'm asking for, which is to have just a better description of how all this is working. So is there more support on the board to make that ask, or is that something we're comfortable with?
My support, yes, I think it's a significant area. And the landscaping should be part of the package as well. And the study of the tree, as you've mentioned. That's all part of the same package. Right?
Well, I don't hear anybody else, David, so I think that's where we leave that. Okay, well, look, it's now up to somebody making a motion. If I do not support putting this to a subcommittee, but if somebody else wants to make that motion, now is the time to speak.
I'll move that we approve this project as presented with a list of I believe it was 4 or 5 items that might return to a subcommittee for review. Would that be a complete motion?
Why don't you itemize what's on that list, Gross? You can just say the subject of it.
The items that would come back to subcommittee review would include green tile pattern,
Okay,
cap of the shingles along the lower mast elevation element on Kellogg. A cut sheet of the exterior landscape light, and I believe that's on Kellogg Street as well.
okay. Was there anything else anybody wants to make sure that's the complete list that you want to put in your motion? Okay, so it's been moved. Do we have a seconder on that motion?
Sure, I will second.
Okay, do either of you want to speak to your motion? No? Okay, well then
Is it possible to make a friendly amendment?
yes, please do. It's not complete to what we just talked about. You folks should know that.
Could we add that the applicant look at an acoustic barrier on the second level?
Sure, so that would be a sketch of consider or please study the possibility of addition.
Correct.
To, at the terrace level, acoustical panel, and describe the reduction in decibel, the projected remediation that would occur with that addition.
Yes. Yes.
I'm happy to add that to the motion.
Like another friendly amendment?
I will vote.
Or do we vote on the first one?
You're welcome to make a friendly amendment, David. Propose something.
I think Board Member Liu has to second the friendly amendment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Alex, are you okay with Ozma's amendment?
Yes, I seconded it.
Okay. David, you are going to propose something.
Yes, I propose that the applicant explore the use of the light pads around the perimeter to expand the natural lighting into the basement rooms.
Okay, is that acceptable to you, Grace?
I think the language that, and maybe you can just clarify, I believe that there was discussion about just some kind of, what is it? To let in light in the way that has been shown already in one situation that is
Yeah,
at the floor.
it's the walkable
Adjustment,
light.
perhaps you
Walkable path, light.
is that what we're agreeing on as the
Yeah.
friendly amendment?
Yes.
Yeah, the walkable skylight.
That would be the word, 2 words, walkable skylight.
Yeah.
I'm open to adding that language as a friendly amendment.
Alex?
Yeah, so what is the exact requirement? To study it, or are you actually requiring it to be included at all?
David and Uzma, maybe you can.
I think it's a study.
I will accept study. I would not accept requiring every room, every classroom to have skylights.
I too agree with further study.
Okay, so the amendment is to ask for further study of skylights at the lower level classrooms.
I'll accept.
Okay.
One other friendly amendment, and that would be to present the committee with more full-scale elevations of the courtyard facade.
Okay, the amendment has been proposed. Grace?
Okay, which amendment are we talking about? The walkable skylight first? Are we going to get a second?
David is asking for an amendment requesting full-scale or larger scale elevation drawings of the courtyard facade. I think we already beat this one to death, David, but Grace, it's your.
Let's find out. It's an amendment.
Yeah, that wasn't on my list, and I want to just make sure we second the walkable skylight, so we're just.
Oh, Alex said that was okay, I think.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah.
Alex, did I misspeak?
Yeah, I didn't have the oh, sorry, Alex, you go ahead.
No, I'm fine with that.
Alex, are you in support of studying additional walkable skylights?
Yeah.
Okay. David has now proposed requesting larger scale elevation drawings of the interior courtyard elevations of the building. Grace, what was your response to that?
That one didn't seem like we had a lot of, all of us, or a majority agreeing on that. So
Okay. So you do not accept that amendment. Okay, so David, you have the option of making an unfriendly amendment and try to gather votes for it.
Well, then let's change the word.
I think that's the territory we're in on this now, unfortunately, but do you want to do that? I don't think you have the votes for it.
Well, I'll do it anyhow and rather than vote it down.
Okay, so Jody, can you correct me? Are we doing this the right way now?
I am looking that up as we speak. We don't do this very often. We're usually a pretty friendly board.
Well, I don't think this is unfriendly. I think we have people who feel strongly about things, and we want to make sure we're doing it through the proper mechanism.
I think we do have Albert here if need be, but I'm also looking this up as we speak. But I think
Alex, do you have any guidance for us? You've been through this, perhaps.
I have some ideas too.
Yeah, Amy's been here longer too.
Certainly when building permits, assuming, well, not assuming anything, but any building permit is going to have to show elevations on all sides of the building. Yeah, what it's going to look like with the windows and all of that. So that's always an opportunity.
I think we're looking for guidance on
a-
unfriendly amendments.
Yeah, so if there's an amendment, if friendly amendment not accepted, it would occur with the main motion, but chair has discretion to bifurcate the issue.
So it's up to the chair's discretion?
To do an unfriendly amendment?
I'm just reading the rules.
Just jumping in here, the rules should allow for an amendment, which is by definition unfriendly amendment. It's a secondary motion, that can be made while the main motion is pending, as long as it has a maker and a seconder. And then you would vote on that amendment before you would go back to the main motion.
Right, that's what I thought. Okay, so David is making a secondary motion that we request full scale or larger scale elevation drawings of the building elevations. Is that right, David?
That's correct.
Okay, well, I'll second that and then we have a vote on it. So let's have a vote on that issue, Vin.
And sorry, I have a quick question. That's not contrary to the motion that's happening, right? The request is part of the subcommittee request?
It's a separate motion.
Yeah, this is something that would then be made as part of the main motion. Is that right?
If it gets approved, then it would be incorporated into the main motion.
Right. So it's still not fully approved as the package of what we're saying, but we're sort of forcing Grace's hand on the motion.
And
So-
to be clear, I want to make sure about what is the new motion. Is it for full scale elevations that, you know, your back is to the courtyard and you're looking at interior elevations?
Okay, David.
Turn to
No,
the
it's just the
subcommittee for
interior
review?
facade
I-
of the courtyard.
So be more clear, David. Let's really be precise here. What are we looking for them to do?
Larger scale drawings of the facade,
Give us a scale. What scale do you want to see? 1/8 inch?
the same as they did on the perimeter, like that, with the perspective and the larger scale drawings that we've been looking at.
Well, the drawings now are at 1/16 inch scale.
Mhm.
Is that what we're asking for?
And it's just for the inner courtyard, not for,
Those drawings are sort of here. It's just, they're not correct.
Well, They're 1/16 right now. Right? That's the scale of the drawing, but we see them half size. So we're looking at 1/32. So I would say they should be done, if they're going to be produced at this scale, they should be twice up, 2 times the scale.
I didn't understand you, David.
2 times the scale is shown on the drawing.
Okay, so we want to see 1/16 scale drawings of,
They are 1/16 right now, Peter. The drawings that are shown on our set are 1/16.
well, they're, yeah, but they're
They're
reduced.
half size. They're
Yeah,
half
that's not the applicant's issue. I mean, it's just the size drawing we get.
Yeah.
So we want to see 1/16 inch scale drawings of the elevations of the building.
That's what we have at present. If we're going to make them into half scale, half size set.
So do you want 1/8 on reduced size paper?
Yes,
Okay, so we're asking for 1/8 scale drawings.
and are you asking for all elevations of the building or just the interior courtyard elevations?
well, there would be 3 interior courtyard elevations. Of basically the classroom building and the art building and the dining room, et cetera, wing of the building.
Okay, so we're asking for 1/8 scale, which is twice as big as they are now, elevations. David, just make it of the buildings.
Make it which? Sorry?
We want
Of
elevations
all the
at
buildings.
1/8 scale of all the buildings.
Okay, fine.
That's the motion. I second the motion. Any other comments on it before we vote if that becomes included?
Can we also add that the change to the facade that we saw today is incorporated in this
Yes, of course. That
update?
should be completed 1/8 inch scale elevations.
Okay.
To be reviewed by the subcommittee is what I understand.
Well, that would go into the motion as a subcommittee item. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do we have any, let's have a vote on that. Vin, can you call a vote?
Yes. Chair Bolte,
Yes.
Board Member Hirsch,
Yes,
Board Member Lee,
Nay.
Board Member Liu,
Nay.
Vice Chair Thompson.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries 3-2.
Okay, so that's been now, to be clear, that's been added to Grace's motion. Let me try one more friendly amendment. I want to be quick. Grace, can we ask them to study the health of tree number 89? That's the one I think is impacted.
Yes, I'll accept that as
Okay, thank you. Alex, are you okay with that?
Yeah, but I think, Peter, that's already been addressed in, I think maybe in the last meeting. I think they talked about reconfiguring the staircase there and changing the paving to DG. But if you want to revisit it, I will.
Yeah, Alex, this is important to me that the tree gets saved, and I just don't have confidence that it's been studied yet. So by this, at least it gets looked at more carefully.
We do, revisit it again.
Okay, so I'm asking that to go back to, looks like a subcommittee. Okay, with that, we have.
Wait, question. Sorry, one more.
Oh,
This question for you, Peter. Did you also want to study oak tree 22, the impact on that one?
I didn't mention that. Which tree is that?
I thought that was the one that you noticed that the diameter was bigger.
That's oak tree number 89.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I guess I
The
read
other
that
tree I
wrong there.
mentioned was 155, but I don't want to go there right now. It's too much, I think.
Okay, never mind.
You guys aren't going to agree with me, and I don't want to push it. So,
All right, then I don't have anything to add.
anything else to our motion, gang? Okay, with that, then we have a motion that's been made and seconded. Let's have a vote on that. Vin?
Chair Bolte,
No, I'm opposed to it.
Board Member Hirsch,
Back to me a little bit. Let me think.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
I'm not voting right at the moment. I'm holding off.
Okay, I'll come back to you at the end.
Mhm. Thank you.
Board Member Lee,
Yes.
Board Member Liu,
Yes.
Vice Chair Thompson.
Yes.
Okay, Board Member Hirsch.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries 4-1.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate the hard work and the consideration, and I hope none of us take this personally. It's all about trying to do what we think is the best thing to do. With that, congratulations to the applicant. Your motion is carried. And let's see, can we quickly go through the rest of our agenda here? Ozma, how much time do you have left?
I have 5 minutes.
Okay, well, next item is approval of minutes. Do we have any comments on the round of minutes here?
Peter, I have comments. They're all very minor, like typos and things that I can send directly to staff. I don't think there's any, don't think we have to discuss them.
Okay, so I'll move that we approve the minutes subject to the comments that we haven't seen yet from Alex, which is going to send. Talk about a vote of confidence, Alex. Do we have a
I'll second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Let's have a vote, Vin.
Chair Bolte,
Yes?
Board Member Hirsch,
Yes.
Board Member Lee,
Yes.
Board Member Liu,
Yes.
Vice Chair Thompson.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries 5-0.
Okay, Alex, next item is subcommittee report. Do we have anything for North Ventura?
Yes, there's a meeting tonight. It's a joint meeting with the Parks and Recs Commission. It's I think it's at 6 o'clock tonight. To view the feasibility study of naturalizing Matadero Creek.
Okay. Are you suggesting we should all go to that meeting?
No, because we don't want to have a quorum there.
Okay, well, we're counting on you to report back then from your attendance at the meeting, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Alex? Are we?
No, I think the only other thing that I think we should mention is that I think the city clerk's office extended the deadline for ARB applications, but I don't have the exact date. But I think I would think it's sometime soon.
Okay, that comes into board member comments or announcements. So yes, I haven't gotten a clear answer whether the actual recruitment period has been extended for the ARB. Jody, do you know what the status is?
I hadn't heard officially, but there was some possibility of extending the application period. But then I have also heard from the clerk's office that they will still make a decision by December 14th. So any extension's not going to go past that. We will have, new board members at the appropriate time.
Great, that's what's of interest to us. Anything else? Okay, then we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, staff, Amy, Jody, and Reddy. Thank you to the applicant. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you all.
Everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.